Look, my life was already a mess before the whole dying and waking up as a starving orphan in a fantasy world thing happened. Picture this: a broke grad student, parents gone from a car accident, surviving on part-time jobs and instant noodles, trying to finish a biology thesis that made me want to cry into my test tubes every single night. The only good thing going for me: my buddy, well, technically my boss, this younger kid named Lou who opened a cat cafe while still in college. Same age range as me, already a business owner. Life is fair, right? Right? He gave me a job at his shop, which was honestly the nicest thing anyone had done for me in years. After work, we'd hop online and play this chill building game together, stacking blocks and farming virtual carrots like a couple of digital peasants. It was my therapy, my escape, my one crumb of peace. Then one rainy night, I dragged myself out of the lab soaking wet because, of course, I forgot my umbrella. Got back to my dorm, clothes dripping everywhere, sat down at my computer to play a quick session, and my body just quit. Like someone yanked the power cord on me. Brain went fuzzy, limbs turned to concrete, and everything faded to black. Dead. Just like that. A cold, a fever I didn't even notice, and boom, game over. Next thing I know, consciousness flickers back on like a busted light bulb, and some giant calloused hands are yanking me out of rubble. People are yelling. Someone almost poured lamp oil into my mouth instead of water. Fantastic first impression of the afterlife, really. My eyes cracked open, and everyone around me was glowing. Literally glowing with this faint white light. My first thought, did I make it to heaven? But I'm Chinese. Heaven doesn't have jurisdiction here. Turns out, not heaven. Not even close. A wrecked little town, Renaissance-looking architecture smashed to bits, soldiers in actual steel armor hauling around actual corpses. And the reason for all this destruction? A one-eyed giant. Like a real cyclops with tumors on its body, swinging a club the size of a minivan. The kind of thing you fight in video games, not in real life. Except this wasn't a game, and those body parts scattered across the ground were very, very real. The squad leader, this tired dude with bird's nest hair and armor that had seen better centuries, barked some orders and handed me off to his second-in-command, a woman named Lena. She was the team medic and a fighter, which already told me this world didn't mess around. She picked me up and tossed me over her shoulder like a sack of rice. Her shoulder plate dug into my stomach the entire walk. Lovely. And the view from up there? Oh, magnificent. Burning houses. Soldiers stacking mangled bodies. Intestines falling out during transport. One poor soul completely flattened into human jam. Armor and flesh smooshed together like the worst sandwich ever made. My stomach did a backflip. If you puke on me, Lena said, cold as winter, I'll throw you on the pile and set you on fire too. I believed her. 100%. She put me down and I speed crawled to a wall, threw up everything I had, which was nothing. And then the smell of burning bodies and lamp oil hit me like a truck, and I passed out again. Real heroic entrance into this new world, let me tell you. Woke up later in a little cot inside a medical tent, candlelight flickering, body aching everywhere, but nothing broken. The kid I'd replaced, some nameless orphan who'd been wandering around starving, had zero connections, zero backstory, zero people who'd miss him. Honestly, perfect cover. As long as I didn't start rambling about smartphones in graduate school, nobody would suspect a thing. Lena came back with dinner, a bowl of plain porridge, and casually explained that a cyclops had flattened the entire town, killed almost everyone, and I'd somehow survived by getting buried under a collapsed wall without actually getting crushed. Lucky or unlucky, she said, hard to tell. Story of my life, lady. She asked if I remembered my name. The orphan kid never had one, but my real name, Leon, tried to stumble out of my tiny new mouth. Leon, she raised an eyebrow. You know what? Sure, Leon. And for a last name, I smashed together, Cozy, because back in that lab, the one wish I'd made was to live a comfortable life someday. Ironic, considering I'd just been reborn into a war zone full of man-eating giants. Cozy Eye Lions, I told her. My name is Cozy Eye Lions. Cozy. In a world where cyclopes use people as stress balls. Yeah, this was going to be fine. Oh, and apparently, back on Earth, some ancient divine beast, a giant fluffy white creature chilling in a forest, recognized my soul flying by because I used to brush its fur at the cat cafe. It had been disguising itself as a cat the whole time. It flicked a little blessing my way like tipping a waiter, muttered something about mooching free cake from Lou later, and sent me off. My entire Isekai'd origin story exists because I gave a god a good brushing. You cannot make this stuff up. After Lena asked me a few basic questions to make sure my brain hadn't turned to mush, she explained the situation, told me to eat on schedule, and left to check on the other survivors. Real warm and fuzzy, that one. Meanwhile, Commander Isekai'd, bird's nest hair guy, was burning the midnight oil in his tent, writing up reports with the kind of dark circles under his eyes that would make a raccoon jealous. Lena walked in and gave him the rundown. Most of the town's guards were weak and got demolished. Survivors were in bad shape, missing limbs left and right, and one man literally got eaten by a cyclops while trying to protect his wife and daughter. And then there was me, the 6-year-old stray who somehow came out of a building collapse with nothing but bruises and a bad attitude. Lena called me the least affected. High praise in a town full of traumatized amputees, I guess. After she left, some guy named Egio materialized out of the shadows like a ninja in a bad action movie. Black bodysuit, face mask, the whole edgy assassin starter pack. Turns out the Cyclopes weren't acting on their own. They'd been mind-controlled by something called foul giants. 3 of them. These nasty things had cursed eyes that could enslave entire Cyclops tribes and twist their bodies with gross tumors. The assassin recommended killing them from a distance, which, yeah, no argument there. Don't get close to the monster with the evil mind control eyeballs. Seems like common sense to me. Morning came. 3 bowls of porridge from the night before had done wonders, and my tiny body actually felt semi-functional. Splashed some water on my face and caught my reflection. A black-haired kid who looked about 70% like the old me and 30% like someone from this world. Weird combo. Like if you put my face through one of those ethnicity swap filters. The dead orphan's memories trickled in like a sad movie playing in my dreams. Parents killed by monsters. Been wandering alone since forever. 6 years old. Tragic backstory. Unlocked. Then the smell of rice hit me, and my stomach roared like it had its own opinion about breakfast. A big jolly cook was ladling out food to soldiers, and when he spotted me standing there looking pathetic, he waved me over with the energy of a cafeteria angel, literally glowing with that weird white light, like a chubby saint of carbohydrates. The military breakfast spread was something: thick vegetable porridge, actually decent, not bad at all. A brick of black bread, tasted like chewing a shoe, but filling. Salted dried meat stew, genuinely delicious by medieval standards. 2 steamed purple carrots, purple. Almost didn't recognize them. Apparently vitamins come in grape flavor here. A dish of pickled mustard greens, salty, crunchy, honestly the MVP of the meal. And then, goat cheese. 1 tiny block of absolute biological warfare. The smell hit my nostrils like a vengeful ghost. Back in my old life, modern food had spoiled me rotten, and this chunk of fermented nightmare was where I drew the line. Too small to return, too gross to eat, too wasteful to throw away. The ultimate dilemma. While I sat there holding it at arm's length and scanning the area for someone to pawn it off on, a hand snatched it away, and then immediately put it right back in my bowl. A knuckle rapped my shoulder. Don't like it? You won't have the energy to march with us if you don't eat. Isekai'd plopped down next to me on a broken rock, dunked his black bread in the meat stew, and started eating like it was a 5-star restaurant. Then he introduced himself properly. Commander of the 6th Mobile Anti-Monster Unit of the Duchy's City Defense Forces. Basically, the guy they call when giants start squishing people. Then came the big question: what happens to me now? Option A, the orphanage. Other homeless kids, adult supervision, meals and housing covered by the government. Catch: gotta pay it all back when you grow up, unless you join the military for a 25% discount. Also 0 freedom. Basically boarding school meets debt trap. Option B, drop me off at a nearby village. Here's a crappy shack. Good luck feeding yourself. Maybe someone will hire you to wash dishes. More freedom, more loneliness, more, figure it out yourself. Look, I'm mentally 25. The idea of being herded into a room with actual 6-year-olds, playing tag, and going to bed at sundown, made my soul leave my body a second time. Absolutely not. A village full of farmers sounded way more manageable. Learn to grow stuff, keep my head down, build a quiet life. City was out too, Child labor exploitation and back alley muggers are practically mandatory in every fantasy story ever written. Anime taught me that much. The silence between us stretched long enough that Astega started wondering if asking a 6-year-old to plan his own future was maybe a bit much. Take your time, he said, standing up. No rush. Option 2. A small village. Please, Commander sir. He froze. Turned around. Stared at me like I'd just solved a math equation on a chalkboard. You've really? Huh. You've already made up your mind. He laughed, big and genuine, and slapped his hand on top of my head, turning my hair into a bird's nest that matched his own. All right, I respect it. And drop the commander thing. Call me Mr. Astega, or Uncle, whatever feels right. We're putting together a battle plan, so Lena will escort you to a nearby village. She knows the area. 2 days, 2 nights. Plenty of time to get you settled and make it back. And hey, you've got no luggage, so that makes things easy. No luggage. No possessions. No family. No plan. Easy. Sure. As he walked away, this weird warmth crept into my chest, which made no sense. I'd known this man for all of 12 hours. But here in a destroyed town, surrounded by death, wearing a dead kid's body in a world full of monsters, having one person treat me like I mattered hit different. Mr. Astega? Will we meet again? He paused, glanced back over his shoulder with that strange mix of cheerfulness and melancholy. Maybe. If we pass through your village, I might stop by to check on a certain little guy. And then he was gone, that tall silhouette fading away with all the dramatic energy of an anime mentor character. Optimistic and depressed at the same time. Like those tough-looking guys back home who'd yell at you for crossing the street wrong and then buy you lunch. I told myself it was just the suspension bridge effect. You know, stranger saves you in a crisis, brain goes, oh wow, best friend ever. Mix in the weird holy glow everyone seemed to have, the terror of being alone in a new world, and boom, instant emotional attachment. Totally normal, totally explainable. Not feelings, just psychology, right? Anyway, I finished breakfast, quietly left the goat cheese on the tray for the cook to deal with, his problem now, and found a quiet corner to sit and contemplate the absolute circus my existence had become. No plan, no money, no skills applicable to medieval farming. A 25-year-old biology grad student trapped in the body of a malnourished 6-year-old, about to be dropped off in a random village to fend for himself. At least Astega's people checked me out and confirmed. No dark magic traces, no mind control, identity clean. Just a regular orphan with a made-up name and absolutely zero idea what comes next. Fantastic. Somebody poked me in the back with something hard while I was sitting there having my existential crisis. Noon already. Half the day gone just staring at nothing. Turned around, and there was Lena, arms crossed, holding her sword sheath like she was considering whacking me with it. Lena. Sis. Listen, she looked about the same age as the old me. Calling a woman my own mental age, big sister, in a squeaky kid voice felt like gargling broken glass. The word barely made it past my teeth. Just call me Lena. We're not close. Don't force it. Cold as a freezer aisle. Classic Lena. Time to go? I'm taking you to a village called Novus. It's not exactly next door, so move it. We grabbed a warhorse from the stable, and before my brain could process what was happening, Lena grabbed the back of my shirt like a mama cat picking up a kitten, swung me onto the saddle in front of her, kicked the horse, and we were off. First time riding a horse. In this life, and the last one. And this wasn't some gentle trot through a meadow. This was a military warhorse doing full gallop down a dirt road. My organs rearranged themselves with every bounce. The wind turned my already messy bird's nest hair into something that probably qualified as modern art. My tiny hands death-gripped the iron ring on the saddle because one slip meant becoming a speed bump. Eventually, the panic faded and boredom took its place. The road was just a clear dirt path through endless dense forest. No travelers, no landmarks, just trees, darkness between the trees, and the occasional bird getting scared off by our thundering hooves. Hours of this. Naturally, I tried to make conversation. Lena, what's the village like? You'll see when we get there. How long until we arrive? Tomorrow noon. What's for dinner? Don't know. Stop talking. Oh, okay. Chatting with this woman was like trying to have a heart-to-heart with a glacier. The rest of the afternoon passed in agonizing silence. My legs went completely numb. but was filing a formal complaint. The sunset was painting the sky in gorgeous oranges and reds. But did I care? Absolutely not. I was too busy squirming around trying to find a position that didn't make me want to cry. Stop moving. Rest when we're out of the forest. Thanks, Lena. Super helpful. Finally, the trees opened up and we burst onto an open plain. Early spring grasslands stretching to the horizon, a little stream winding through. Everything bathed in that golden-orange sunset glow. Peaceful. Beautiful. The kind of fantasy world scenery that belonged on a desktop wallpaper. This was the proper Isekai'd experience. The corpses and ruins were just a bad opening tutorial level. This was the real. Lena's hand slammed my head down flat against the horse's back. Her body pressed down over mine. An arrow whistled past right where my skull had been half a second ago. Then came the laughter. Shrill, nasty, nails on a chalkboard cackling from somewhere ahead. Everything happened in a blink. Lena drew her sword with a metallic shing, leaped off the horse, and started casting abilities like she was speedrunning a boss fight. Sticky technique, sword flourish. Calm as ordering coffee. Body barrier, a faint glow wrapped around her. Metal edge, the sword turned pale gold. By the time I managed to turn my head toward the attackers, two ugly green heads were already spiraling through the air with blood trailing behind them. Their headless bodies wobbled off their mounts and hit the ground. One more shadow shrieked and bolted into the trees. Lena casually flicked her sword and skewered the fourth without even looking. Total elapsed time, maybe 4 seconds. I was still processing the arrow that almost gave me an extra breathing hole. Carefully swinging both legs to one side, I measured the distance to the ground, let go, and dropped, landing square on my butt. Graceful as always. Waddled over on my sore legs to inspect the bodies. Green skin, pointy ears, red eyes, ratty loincloth instead of actual clothes. A few sad, greasy hairs sticking out of the scalp like a pork rind that didn't get scraped properly. The face was frozen in its final expression, a snarl that screamed, I make poor life choices. Goblins. Actual goblins. Riding what turned out to be oversized wild boars. My stomach did a warning flip, but at this point, I was building up a tolerance to fantasy world gore. Progress. Lena was wiping her sword on the dead boar's fur with the expression of someone cleaning dog poop off their shoe. Then she pulled a dagger from her belt and tossed it at me. Since you're down here, make yourself useful. Cut some meat off that thing. There's dinner. The dagger was beautiful. A flash of cold steel as I unsheathed it. A dramatic moment where a cooler protagonist would have said something like, nice blade. I glanced at Lena's Ice Queen face and immediately abandoned that stupid idea. The boar was basically a giant, mud-crusted, foul-smelling pig. Cutting it open was an experience. Blood everywhere. Guts in technicolor. The smell was a war crime. I kept my mouth sealed shut and breathed through sheer willpower. Despite never having butchered anything in my life, across 2 lives, I managed to hack off a few rib sections with meat still attached. My clothes looked like I'd lost a fight with a paint bucket filled with blood. Lena packed the dripping meat into some kind of leather bag, led us to the stream, and pointed into the darkening distance. Throw your clothes far away, wash the blood smell off in the stream. I'll set up camp on the other side. Hurry up and come get changed. And then she walked off with the horse, leaving me. Alone. In the dark. On a plain where goblins had just tried to murder us. Stripped down in record time. Wrapped my bloody clothes around a rock. Chucked them into the void. And stood there in nothing but rough underwear, while the evening breeze reminded every inch of my skin that spring nights are cold. The stream water was freezing. Goosebumps on goosebumps. I scrubbed fast. Honestly, barely any blood had gotten past the outer clothes, but leaving any scent for nocturnal predators seemed like a terrible survival strategy. Then a campfire flickered to life on the opposite bank, and I sprinted toward it like a moth who finally understood the meaning of life. In that moment, I completely grasped why my middle school history teacher said the discovery of fire was humanity's greatest achievement. Standing half-naked in monster territory at night will give you that kind of clarity. Lena tossed me a spare set of clothes. Even rough cloth felt like luxury cashmere after running around nearly naked in the dark. She'd set up a nice little operation. Meat on a makeshift branch rack over the fire, carefully rotating it, sprinkling precious salt from a small jar. The way she pinched out those tiny crystals told me salt wasn't cheap around here. The army's small jar of pickled vegetables suddenly made a lot more economic sense. The wild boar ribs came out looking gorgeous, actually. Golden brown, evenly cooked, no burnt spots, no raw pink. Lena had real talent. The taste, though, was another story. No oil, no fat, no garlic, no ginger, no cooking wine, no seasoning besides a pinch of salt on meat that was fundamentally, spiritually, aggressively gamey. But Lena was chowing down with the closest thing to happiness I'd seen on her face since we met. Turns out, military rules forbade hunting during marches. If one person got fresh meat and others didn't, everyone would start freelancing and discipline would collapse. Solo missions were the only chance to eat something that wasn't dry jerky or sad porridge. This was her treat. Chewing through the tough, stringy boar meat, all I could think about was sitting outside Lou's Cat Cafe, grilling skewers, drinking beer, complaining about life with my college buddy. That felt like a million years ago now, and probably was. After dinner, Lena poked the fire to keep it going, set 2 pots of water near the stones to warm up, and that was it. No phone, no games, no TV, nothing to do. Just sitting by a campfire in the middle of nowhere, wrapped in a thin shirt, staring at flames. I actually started to miss my laboratory equipment. Test tubes. I'm sorry I ever cursed your existence. Boredom won again. Lena, those abilities you used when you killed the goblins, was that magic? What about it? Well, it's just, how do I put this? It felt kind of plain. Yeah, exactly. I expected it to be more flashy. She read my mind without me finishing a single sentence. Apparently, every kid who sees their first fight has the same reaction. Where are the explosions? Where's the giant fireball? Why doesn't it look like the cool stuff from stories? But the food had put her in a generous mood, and maybe she figured a soon-to-be solo orphan could use some basic world knowledge, because for once she actually kept talking instead of shutting me down. Magic isn't supposed to look pretty. It's supposed to kill things efficiently or serve people. Against goblins, I don't even need spells. What I used were low-level tricks, just precautions. Pretty is for amateurs. If you ever get the chance to see a real archmage cast something, then you'll understand how wonderful magic can be. Sitting by the fire, chewing terrible boar meat, getting a magic lecture from a woman with the emotional range of a brick. This was my new life. And honestly, compared to yesterday's pile of flattened corpses and that goat cheese, it was a significant upgrade. Tricks? Those glowing things on your body and sword were just tricks. I rolled over toward Lena, putting on my best wide-eyed curious student face. Years of sucking up to my thesis advisor made this expression second nature. Turns out, magic in this world runs on a tier system. Spells rank from 1 to 13, rings. Ring 0 doesn't even count as real magic. It's basically the tutorial level, called cantrips, the stuff Lena used against the goblins. Sticky technique, body barrier, metal edge, all ring 0. Baby moves, the magical equivalent of learning to tie your shoes. My face must have looked like a kid staring at a candy store, because she immediately splashed ice water on my dreams. If you'd gone to the orphanage, kids with magic talent get sent to a magic academy at the right age. The government covers the cost until you're an adult. Regular families can send their kids too, but someone has to front the tuition. You're alone with 0 money, so good luck with that. Maybe your choice wasn't so smart after all. Wait, could I maybe still? No. Ostega told you to think carefully. We rode for an entire day. You want to change your mind now? Absolutely not. Okay, fine. I was just testing the waters. Deep down, a 25-year-old man living in a children's shelter getting tucked in at bedtime still sounded worse than poverty. My pride had limits, even in a fantasy world. Besides, if both orphans and commoners could attend magic school, the information couldn't be that hard to dig up later. Anyway, you're way too young for Magic Academy right now, so stop overthinking it. And just like that, she shut down my follow-up question before it left my mouth. Classic Lena move, answering the thing you haven't asked yet and slamming the door on it. The sky went fully dark. Objectively, it was way earlier than those all-nighters pulling experiments back at the lab. But a full afternoon of horse-induced spinal damage plus goblin butchering plus existential dread had drained my brain dry. I curled up on the soft grass next to the fire and knocked out almost instantly. What I didn't know, and only pieced together later, was that Lena took off her cloak, draped it over my sleeping body, grabbed her sword, and walked into the darkness. Because apparently, nighttime in this world is when things get spicy. Wolves. A whole pack of forest wolves came creeping toward our campfire with glowing green eyes. Lena had this passive detection spell running called Mana Alert, basically a magical motion sensor that pings whenever a living creature enters the zone. She'd been using it the whole time like it was background music. She cast Beast Eyes to see in the dark, then Metal Body to turn herself into a human tank, and proceeded to beat the entire wolf pack using just her scabbard. Not even the blade. The sheath. She bonked the first wolf on the head like she was disciplining a puppy, dodged another mid-leap, and uppercutted it in the stomach with the flat side. The wolves tried surrounding her, rushing from every angle. She poked, sliced, and swept them away like she was playing whack-a-mole. The alpha wolf tried to be clever, faking attacks while eyeing me as a softer target. Lena noticed. She parried its lunge, whispered, scram, and bicycle kicked it in the head so hard it flew sideways into a tree. The pack dragged their unconscious leader away, howling miserably, and disappeared into the forest. No blood, no bodies, just flattened grass. Lena strolled back to camp, stretched her arms, leaned against the big rock, hugged her sword, and went to sleep. All of this happened while I was snoring 10 feet away. My bodyguard was a one-woman army, and I slept through her greatest hits. Morning came with someone shaking me awake. Dawn was painting everything gold, and the open grassland stretched out in a way that made every skyscraper I'd ever seen look pathetic. Slapped my own cheeks to wake up, stretched, and realized sleeping on the ground hadn't made me sore at all. The orphan body came pre-installed with homeless camping resistance. Finally, a perk. Breakfast was leftover boar meat stuffed into heated black bread, washed down with lukewarm water. 5 stars on the medieval Yelp review. Would not recommend. Lena properly extinguished the fire, scattered it, doused it, buried the ashes, which told me she was either extremely responsible or extremely paranoid. Probably both. Good qualities in a bodyguard. Back on the horse. The plains were flat and fast, no incidents, just a few distant black dots moving around that could have been animals or monsters or tax collectors. Too far to tell. We crossed the grassland, climbed over some rolling hills, and eventually hit a proper road with actual cart tracks on it. Civilization. Far ahead, Gothic-style pointed rooftops poked above the horizon. A town, maybe a city. But Lena yanked the reins and turned us the other direction, toward a range of mountains. The landscape shifted dramatically. We entered a basin surrounded by peaks, everything exploding with spring green. Moss covered the cliff faces like nature's wallpaper. The valley was alive, lush, and smelled like actual earth and growing things instead of blood and burnt goblin. We wound around the base of the mountains, and then, wisps of smoke rising behind the trees. The scent of countryside cooking drifted in, soil, plants, wood fire. My shoulders dropped about 3 inches. For the first time in 2 days, the tension melted. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I could practically hear banjo music playing. Lena rode up a hill, and there it was, Novus Village. Named after the Novus Mountains because the original settlers had zero creativity. About 20-some houses scattered around a crystal-clear lake that reflected the sky like a mirror. Farmland plots marked out in neat rectangles. Dark soil freshly tilled, but not yet planted. Spring planting season was close. A stone road ran east to west connecting the village to the mountain paths. We trotted down the village road. No people around. Everyone busy preparing for the farming season. Past a stone building with metallic clanging coming from inside. A blacksmith, maybe? The whole place had serious, starter village in an RPG, energy, and honestly, I was completely here for it. The horse stopped in front of the fanciest building in town. Fancy, by village standards, meant the logs had been stripped of bark to show smooth brown wood underneath. The walls looked thick and sturdy, and the windows had actual glass. Clean, shiny glass that sparkled in the light. For a kid who just spent 2 days sleeping on dirt and eating gamey boar off a stick, it looked like a 5-star hotel. Lena grabbed me off the horse, pushed open the front door, and warm air from a fireplace hit us like a hug. Inside, wooden tables and chairs neatly arranged, a front counter, stairs to a second floor, a notice board with posted announcements, and a young woman in a simple but tidy-made outfit sweeping the floor. A bell jingled as we entered. She looked up, surprised. "Visitors this early? Welcome. How can I help you?" Lena pulled some kind of military ID from under her armor and handed it over. Name's Lena. City Defense Forces. I need to speak with your village chief. Please let him know. The girl took the card, set down her cleaning cloth, bolted upstairs, bolted back down, and curtsied. Ma'am, the village chief invites you upstairs. We followed her through a second-floor hallway to the last room. Knocked. A weathered old voice said, "Come in." The room was simple and clean. Sofa, cabinet, desk and chair, nothing extra. The man sitting inside had long white hair combed back, a beard hanging to his chest, cloudy eyes, and deep wrinkles carved into his face like they'd been put there by a chisel. Every line told a story. Back in grad school, I knew professors like this. Geology researchers who spent decades doing field work across the country, faces battered by sun and wind until they looked like walking topographic maps. This village chief had that same energy. Not the puffy, well-fed wrinkles of a rich person who moisturizes. These were the real deal, earned one storm at a time. And just like everyone else in this world, he was surrounded by that faint, mysterious white glow. I was still standing there squinting at him, trying to figure out what that light meant, when the old man smiled and gestured toward the chairs. "What an honor to have you visit, Miss Lena. Please, sit down. We're just a humble little village out here. No need for formalities." Lena didn't waste time with pleasantries. She sat on the sofa, took the tea the receptionist girl offered, and got straight to business. But before dealing with my situation, she asked about someone named Asha. Turns out he was a retired soldier from the City Defense Forces, now living in this village as a top-tier hunter who helped keep monsters away. Small world. Or small fantasy world, I guess. Then came the part where my future got negotiated like a used car deal. This kid's name is Cozy Eye. Rescued 2 days ago. Former street orphan. We're not really in the business of charity, but since we found him, our commander wants to place him here. Is that okay? The village chief nodded slowly, but then dropped the question I was dreading. He's pretty young. Wouldn't an orphanage be better? Translation. What's wrong with this kid that you're dumping him in our village instead of a proper facility? Is he a problem child? Because we've got enough problems already. My heart sank a little. Lena saw right through it. He chose this himself. And we're military. We don't have time to babysit orphanage kids long term. There's no hidden catch. He's quiet, normal, maybe a bit shaken up. And if he causes trouble, she paused. Feel free to kick him out and let him fend for himself. Excuse me? My inner adult was screaming. Sure, I wasn't planning to cause problems, but hearing your escort casually suggest, yet just abandon him in the wilderness if he's annoying, was not the heartwarming goodbye speech I was hoping for. But what could I do? Beggars can't be choosers. I hung my head and played the shy orphan card. The chief studied my face like he was reading a fortune, stroked his long white beard, and sighed. All right, poor child. You can stay. Lena stood up, handed over 2 silver coins as a settlement fee, rattled off some regulations. Basically, feed him, house him, make him work, don't spoil him, and headed for the door. And that's when it hit me. Not the relief of having a home. The leaving part. Lena was walking away. The last person who had any connection to the life I'd been living for the past 2 days. Before this, there was Ostega. Before him, the soldiers. Before them, a completely different world, different body, different everything. And now the final thread was about to snap. It felt exactly like graduating college. That hollow feeling when your roommates scatter, your advisor waves goodbye, and you're lying alone in an empty dorm room wondering what just happened. That emptiness was literally why I became a graduate student. I couldn't handle the loneliness of leaving. And now? World gone. Family gone. Friends gone. The kind commander gone. And the Ice Queen medic who carried me like a sack of potatoes, threatened to burn me alive, killed wolves while I slept, and fed me terrible boar meat. She was about to be gone too. My hand started to reach out. Lynn, she stopped, turned, walked back to the doorway where I was standing, and placed her hand on top of my head. Livewell, people have to grow up. You need to learn to face goodbyes and loneliness. Then she was on her horse and gone before I could blink. Dust settling on the road, mountain breeze in my face, messy bangs blowing back from my eyes. Only kids think they can handle anything alone. Adults know exactly how much it hurts to start over somewhere completely new. The old chief's rough, warm hand rested on my shoulder. After a long silence, all I could manage was one very old-sounding sigh from a very small body. Back upstairs. Sofa. Head down. Didn't know what to say? Well then, let's start properly, the chief said gently. My name is Ostic. I'm the village chief. People are kind enough to let me hold the title. You can call me Grandpa Village Chief. I'm Cozy Eye. Cozy Eye Lions. 6 years old. I'm small, but I can do lots of things. The lab had trained me well. One deep breath, flip the mental switch, push through. My expression shifted from lost puppy to determined kid in about 2 seconds flat. The old man noticed and was clearly relieved. A crying, tantrum-throwing brat would have been a nightmare for his aging patience. You bounce back quick. How about a village tour? And off we went. Through the window, Ostic pointed out that Novus sat in a small valley at the edge of a mountain range. The surrounding forests had monsters and beasts, but mostly non-aggressive ones, so adventurers used the village as a pit stop before heading into the mountains. Downstairs was basically a small tavern, gathering spot for villagers, notice board with job postings and news from the capital, the whole RPG starter village package. This is Vinette, he said, introducing the maid outfit girl from earlier. She handles guests, cleaning, and laundry upstairs. Felt like being introduced around campus by my thesis advisor all over again. I did my awkward little bow. Nice to meet you, Vinette. Sister, hello little Cozy Eye. If you ever need help with anything, just come find me. Finally, a warm human being. Added to the people I like list immediately. Next stop, the stone building with all the banging noises. The chief pushed open the wooden doors and a wall of heat smacked me in the face. Erwin, busy, old man, out for your morning stroll, a booming voice from inside. Asha asked me to make some trap clamps. It's hot in here. Wait outside. Almost done. A massive, sweaty, muscular man emerged wiping his neck with a towel. He spotted me and froze. Chief, where'd you pick up a kid? This is Cozy Eye. His hometown was destroyed by monsters. The city defense army placed him with us. Got any work for him at the smithy? The blacksmith reached down and slapped my shoulder with a hand the size of a dinner plate. Why does every adult in this world communicate through shoulder violence? Kid, you're skin and bones. Blacksmithing needs muscle. You probably can't even lift a hammer. He's 6, Erwin. Just see if you have odd jobs. He chose village life over the orphanage. Wants to earn his own keep. Pretty gutsy, right? Huh? Got spirit. Anyone willing to work won't starve. Another massive backslap that nearly sent my soul flying out of my body for the 3rd time this week. The deal. I'd work the bellows and keep his forge fire going. 3 copper cups per day. No work means no pay. And if the heat got too much, I could quit any time. I had zero idea what the currency was worth, but I nodded enthusiastically anyway. Fake it till you make it. Don't call me Mr. Kid. That's what those annoying nobles in town do. Just call me Uncle. He wound up for another backslap and I dodged, bowing rapidly while retreating behind the chief like a human shield. Erwin laughed. My spine thanked me. As we walked to the next stop, the chief gave me a gentle warning. The person we're about to visit has a bit of a difficult personality. If she says something harsh, don't take it personally. Oh, I had a feeling about this. We stopped at a cozy cottage with a little fenced herb garden full of mysterious plants. The chief knocked. No answer. He raised his voice. Madison, Madison, are you home? I need to talk to you. I'm here. I'm here. Stop yelling. You stinky OLD man. I've told you 1,000 times. Just knock. What if I'm at a critical moment in a potion and your screaming ruins it? I watched the chief's face crumble into pure embarrassment. I pressed my lips together hard to keep from laughing. The door opened to reveal a hunched old woman with salt and pepper hair in a bun, tiny spectacles perched on her nose, and an expression that could curdle milk at 50 paces. Now then, Ostic, what do you want this time? She spotted me. Dead stop. Her eyes narrowed behind those little glasses. This is the new apprentice you found me? They keep getting worse. At least the last one's knew basic herbology. This one's barely old enough to know the alphabet. That sharp, dry, merciless voice struck me like lightning, and not because it was unfamiliar. Oh no, I knew this type intimately. She was the senior professor, the one with 40 years of teaching experience who treated academic rigor like a blood sport. The kind who could find 10,000 flaws in work you did exactly the way she told you to. The kind whose criticism was so devastatingly logical that even your own advisor would just nod and sweat nervously. My old university had 3 of these. I had PTSD flashbacks. Madison Please, he's just a child. You just said he's a child. Her voice jumped an octave. The glasses glinted dangerously. I'm over here treating patients, mixing potions, doing research. I've got a million things to do, and you want me to babysit. And there it was. The crotchety genius mentor archetype, right on schedule. Every fantasy world has one. Every graduate student has survived one. Lucky for me, years of academic warfare had given me the exact playbook for this situation. Not yet. Too early to deploy the advanced techniques. For now, start with the basics. I put on my most sincere, most innocent, most punchably adorable face and said, "Grandma Madison, hello. I can learn. I'm very smart and very obedient. I won't cause you any trouble at all." Wide eyes. Small voice. Maximum, please adopt me, energy. The thesis defense of my life, and I was 6 years old. Pharmacy is a serious discipline. I need a skilled apprentice, not a toddler who'll slow me down. Isekai'd, maybe he's obedient, maybe he'll be useful someday, but at this age, find someone else. Madison was already swinging the door shut when I lunged forward and hit her with the deepest bow my tiny body could manage. Grandma Madison, I don't want to be a burden either, but I want to earn my own way in life. You don't have an apprentice right now. Before you find the right person, just give me one chance to prove I can at least handle the small stuff. Was it emotional manipulation? Yes. Was it a shameless guilt trip wrapped in a puppy dog voice? Absolutely. Did I care? Not even a little. Survival in a fantasy world requires flexible morals and zero pride. The silence stretched forever. Wind blowing. Birds chirping. My forehead pointed at the ground. Then, fine. Prove it then. She didn't close the door. Instead, she waved one hand and 2 books floated off a shelf inside, drifted through the doorway, and hovered in front of my face. Floated. Like actual telekinesis. Just casually. No big deal apparently. This one is continental language translation. You can't even read, so you're useless until you fix that. The other is Introduction to Herbology. I don't expect you to memorize every derivative name, but every standard term and its pharmacological properties burned into your brain. No exceptions. Pharmacy is serious. People's lives depend on accuracy. I'm busy. I won't waste time answering your questions. Ask whoever you want. Use whatever method you want. Just understand both books. When you're ready, come take my test. You get 1 shot. Fail, and don't bother coming back. Door shut. Click. The chief and I stood there staring at each other like 2 people who just survived a tornado. Well, get up, child. Isekai'd helped me straighten. Madison's standards are high. What she told you is already harder than what she actually expects. If you're not completely confident, it's better not to bother her. I scratched my head and said nothing. The orphan body I'd inherited was functionally illiterate. Learning an entirely new writing system plus mastering herbology terminology from scratch, in a world without Google, Wikipedia, or flashcard apps. With 1 shot at the exam? Cool. Cool. No pressure at all. After that, the chief walked me around the rest of the village, introduced me to some farmers working in the fields, showed me the basic layout. Nothing else too dramatic. Then we arrived at a rundown little cottage tucked in the corner of the village. A carpenter used to live here. Left for the city 2 years ago. His craftsmanship was decent, so the structure's still solid. Inside might be a bit messy. It's perfect, Grandpa Chief. Having a roof is enough. I'll clean it myself. He handed me the 2 silver coins Lena had left behind and pointed me to a general store for supplies. Except the shopkeeper, a guy literally named Clutter, had gone to town for inventory and might not be back for days because he was probably getting drunk. Classic. Vanette wanted to come help me clean, but I turned her down with the "I need to be independent" excuse. She looked a tiny bit hurt, but handed over a spare set of bedding with a kind smile. Back at my new home, pushed open the door. A cloud of dust exploded into my face like a welcoming committee from hell. Spider webs everywhere. The furniture situation: 1 brick fireplace, 1 bed, 1 desk/workbench with tool hooks and drawers. A little ceramic dish for candles. A window with rotting fabric stuffed in the cracks, mostly disintegrated. That was it. That was the whole house. I tied a cloth around my face like a bandit, grabbed the borrowed broom, and went to war. 8 legs are the worst thing in any universe. Every web got destroyed. Every crack got torched with a flame and then packed with mud. Every speck of moss got scraped off the corners. The fireplace got relit. I gathered twigs from outside for fuel. By the time I finished, the place actually looked livable. Not great, not modern, but livable. Collapsed face first onto the freshly made bed. The gray-flowered bedding smelled like sunshine and Vanette's gentle kindness. Heaven. Meanwhile, and I obviously didn't know this at the time, back at the destroyed town, Commander Ostega was leading the 6th Squad into battle against the Cyclops camp. Priests cast glowing rune buffs from books that looked straight out of a movie. Rangers fired arrows that pierced giant eyeballs with surgical precision. Ostega himself swung his fancy flame guard sword and launched a massive cross-shaped energy slash into the camp. And the assassin Egio had already silently decapitated all 3 foul giants before the charge even began. The whole operation took probably minutes. These people were terrifyingly efficient, but I didn't know any of that. I was busy having a moment. Stepped outside my clean little house and watched the sunset paint the lake gold. Smoke from village chimneys drifted upward and dissolved into the glowing sky. Unknown birds drew musical lines across the air. And something slipped out of my mouth, an ancient Chinese poem about scattered clouds and a river still as silk, about noisy birds on spring islands and flowers covering meadows. Words from a world and a time so far removed from where I stood that they felt like someone else's memory. Hey, Cozy-eye, all settled in. What are you mumbling? Some bard's song? Erwin the blacksmith appeared on the path, caught me staring at the lake with the expression of a philosophy major having a crisis. He crouched down, arm on my shoulder, gently this time, miracle of miracles. Pretty, isn't it? Years ago, when monsters attacked my home, my wife and I fled here. She fell in love with this view at first sight. She passed away later from illness. But whenever I see this blue lake, it's like looking into her eyes. And I hear her nagging me. He paused softly. Don't miss the stars when you lose the sun. Before I could process that emotional sucker punch, he grabbed me by the waist, swung me up onto his shoulders, and started marching toward the tavern. Come on. Everyone heard there's a new kid in the village. They knocked off work early to throw you a welcome party. The tavern was unrecognizable. This morning it was a quiet, clean little inn. Now, 20-something villagers crammed inside, drinking, shouting, slamming cups on tables, practically shaking the roof off its nails. Erwin took one look at the chaos, set me down, and bellowed, "Hey, you jerks promised to wait for me to bring the kid back. You started drinking without us? Cook. You saved me some, right?" The chef emerged from the kitchen carrying a platter of roasted wild chicken, spotted us, and shrugged helplessly. They're over there. Ask me one more time, and there really won't be any left. You animals, save me a sip. And just like that, the blacksmith abandoned me in the middle of the room and charged into the mob of drinkers like a man possessed. He grabbed someone's cup, chugged it, then complained, "Why is it sage wine again? This stuff's basically juice. Today's supposed to be a welcome party. Break out the good stuff. Shut up and be grateful." Cook shot back, walking over to me with a tray. On it, a glass of apple juice and half a roasted wild chicken seasoned with rosemary and parsley. The chicken had been brushed with honey and garlic before roasting. The skin was golden brown and crackling. White steam rose from the tender meat, carrying the most incredible smell. After yesterday's war crime of goat cheese and this morning's gamey boar, this looked like it belonged in a Michelin restaurant. My mouth watered so hard I almost drooled on the table. Eat up, kid. There's plenty. These drunks only care about booze. Even cheap sage wine matters more to them than food. Thank you. Uncle Cook. Uncle? Am I really Uncle Age already? He pulled off his chef's bandana, scratching his surprisingly thick hair, genuinely distressed about the aging implications. You sure are. Erwin materialized behind him, slinging an arm over Cook's shoulder and handing him a drink. Then he banged the table for attention. Everyone, look here. You forgot tonight's guest of honor sitting over here alone. What kind of welcome party? I asked this. The whole room went quiet. Every eye turned to me. Even the chief and Vanette were smiling from behind the counter, holding apple juice. Erwin raised his cup, thought hard, clearly trying to come up with something profound, then just yelled, "Cheers!" The entire tavern erupted in laughter. That's it? We thought you were going to give a speech. Why did you even bother with the dramatic pause? Erwin's face went tomato red. He recovered in about 2 seconds. Anyway, this kid is Cozy-eye. He's got guts. He's one of us now. To welcome him. Cheers, cheers, T.O. Cozy I. WHOO. Then came the introductions. Erwin dragged me from table to table. This is Annie Harvis. Her turnips are amazing. This is, and this is, every single one of them glowing with that mysterious soft white light, and every single one of them genuinely, ridiculously warm. Then Erwin pointed at a tall, quiet man in a beast fur cloak, black curly hair, sharp eyes, and a necklace made of animal teeth. He looked like he could wrestle a bear and win, but was just sitting there peacefully. That's Asha, the famous hunter. Tonight's chicken? He went out and caught it specially for you. My eyes went wide. Thank you, Mr. Asha. Oh, and Lena says hello. Thank you too, good kid. Asha ruffled my hair gently and patted my back, softly, unlike certain blacksmiths. You're too skinny, though. That's no good. If you ever want to try hunting, come find me. Then someone in the corner started singing. Off-key, with terrible rhythm. And somehow, it was the most beautiful thing I'd heard since arriving in this world. The whole tavern joined in. A folk song about ancient trees and sparkling streams, stone paths singing thousand-year stories, quiet cabins with curling smoke, magic wands casting light, golden wheat swaying in. The wind, fairies laughing, unicorns wandering through forests, moonlit rivers answering twinkling stars. Every single person singing completely out of tune, clapping on the wrong beat, shouting the lyrics more than singing them. I stopped chewing my chicken bone. Because suddenly I was back on that rooftop with Lou, my college buddy, both of us tipsy, lying on our backs, staring at the stars. And he'd pointed up at the sky and slurred, "Hey, senior, I heard that every star up there is actually a different world. Not just planets and galaxies, whole different worlds. So if you could travel, hick, where would you go?" I raised my apple juice in a room full of off-key, glowing, beautiful strangers. Looked out the window at a sky full of stars that were almost, but not quite, the same as the ones back home. This might be this somewhere far away I always wanted to find. Morning in my new life started with shoving leaves into my mouth. Not because I'd lost my mind. These were special plants that worked like nature's toothbrush. Chew them up, spit them out, rinse with water, boom. Dental hygiene, medieval edition. No mini freshness, no fluoride protection, just the raw experience of being a peasant. My dentist back home would have had a stroke. Grabbed a black bread brick for breakfast and sat in my little chair, remembering last night's welcome party. Those villagers drank like their lives depended on it. The sage wine was apparently weak stuff. Basically juice, according to Erwin, but they compensated with volume. By the end, every single drinker was sprawled across the tavern floor like a battlefield of alcoholism. Even Annie Harvis and the other women went drink for drink with the men and passed out just as hard. The only sober survivors. Asha the hunter doesn't drink. Cook. Someone had to be responsible. The chief, too old for that nonsense. And Vinette, too pure for this world. Those four ended up dragging every unconscious villager home one by one. Asha just sighed. Vinette just smiled. The patience of saints, both of them. Before I left, Cook had pulled me into the kitchen and handed me a basket packed with black bread, a cup, a bowl, candles, and other essentials. Little Cozy I, you just got here and we didn't have a proper gift ready. That idiot Clutter still hasn't come back from town, so everyone pitched in and put this together for you. I reached for my 2 silver coins. Cook's hand came down on my head, again with the head patting. Every adult in this village communicates through scalp contact, and he waved the money away. Keep it. This is from all of us. Just know that freebies won't last forever, okay? Then I did some sneaky intelligence gathering. Playing the "I'm just a poor orphan who doesn't understand money" card. I casually extracted the entire currency system from Cook. Gold solar, silver muni, copper cup. 64 of the smaller unit equals 1 of the bigger. A loaf of black bread, about 300 grams, costs 2 copper cups. Quick math. My 2 silver coins could buy me 32 days of bread-only survival. The problem? Bread-only survival would turn my already malnourished stick-figure body into an actual skeleton. Clearly the better strategy was to mooch off Cook and Asha as aggressively as possible while maintaining plausible deniability. "Uncle Cook, can I work here?" "Nothing complicated, just washing vegetables and cleaning up. No pay needed. Everyone's been so kind, I just want to help." The "no pay" thing wasn't what convinced him. It was the gratitude. He ruffled my hair, shocker, and said yes. Then I casually mentioned wanting to learn hunting from Asha. Cook hesitated, warned me forests were dangerous, but ultimately figured a kid in my situation needed survival skills sooner rather than later. Asha himself was equally unsurprised when I brought it up. Turns out, the chief had already told him everything, including the Lena connection. She was his former squad captain. He'd been injured in combat, refused the desk job she arranged for him, and retired to this quiet village to hunt instead. A man after my own heart, honestly. When Lena dropped me here, she probably figured he'd keep an eye on me. Sneaky Ice Queen. Day after tomorrow morning. I'll come find you. That was his entire response. One sentence. Then he went back to hauling drunk villagers home. Spending years on a team with Lena had clearly infected him with her communication style. These people used words like they were being charged per syllable. Cook also dug out a fur hide from the bottom of my basket and wrapped me in it. Since nobody had time to sew it into actual clothing, I ended up looking like a baby bear that got lost at a camping store. Cook took one look and couldn't hold back a snort. But sorry, Asha got this for you this afternoon. The mountains are still cold, so bundle up, and that's how I waddled home looking like a furry dumpling. The next morning, figuring Erwin and half the village were still comatose from their sage wine binge, I decided to be productive. Opened the 2 books Madison had given me and spread them across my desk. Continental Language Translation, basically, literacy for dummies. Introduction to Herbology, basically, plants that won't kill you, and some that will. Step 1. Learn to read. Step 2. Memorize an entire pharmacology textbook. Step 3. Pass an exam with 1 attempt, given by the scariest old woman alive. My teacher? The lovely Vinette, who was more than happy to sit with me at the tavern counter and go through the alphabet. She held my tiny hand, opened the book, and started from the very basics, phonetic symbols. You learn so fast, little cozy eye. Years of graduate-level academic suffering gave me study muscles that a 6-year-old body couldn't hide. I was absorbing this language system like a sponge, and Vinette was beaming with teacher's pride. My gifted child act was getting dangerously convincing. Lunch was simple but decent. Roasted parsnip strips that looked like French fries and smelled like essential oils. Nut cheese on cabbage leaves, a massive upgrade from the goat cheese war crime. And a green pea soup with smoked meat and onions. Cook's skills were legitimate. Not gourmet, but for a tiny village with limited ingredients and only 2 cooking methods, stew or grill. This was genuinely impressive. I learned from Vinette that the village was seasonal. Other times of year, adventurers passed through regularly on their way into Nova's forest for gathering quests, and the tavern stayed busy. Winter was dead, snow, cold, monsters getting aggressive. Nobody wanted to risk the mountains. But spring was here, and business would pick up soon. I'll help out too. I raised my hand like I was in elementary school. Vinette smiled that warm smile of hers. Then I'll thank you in advance. After lunch, I headed home with my books. The weather was warming up. Tree branches were budding along the path. Everything pointed towards spring and new beginnings and hope, which was nice, except I still had to memorize an entire alphabet and vocabulary system. Sat down at my desk, opened the book, stared at the foreign characters. AF. Why can't I escape vocabulary in any universe? Seriously. Died, got reincarnated in a fantasy world, became an orphan, survived cyclopes and goblins and wolf attacks, and my biggest enemy was still flashcards. Some things transcend dimensions. I glared at the page, trying to laser beam the words into my brain through sheer force of will. Staring, concentrating, willing the symbols to make sense. Then something dripped onto my head. A transparent, wobbly, jelly-like blob dangled from my scalp and slowly extended downward, like the world's most terrifying lava lamp. What is that? My blood froze. This was a world with goblins and cyclopes. Unidentified, jiggly objects appearing on your head could not be good. Slime? Monster? Parasitic brain-eating alien? I didn't dare move. Reached one finger up very, very slowly. Touched my head. Nothing. No physical substance. And then it vanished. If there's something scarier than a mysterious creature appearing on your head, it's that creature disappearing and you have no idea where it went. I whipped around, scanning every corner of the room. Nothing. No intruder. No slime trail. No evidence whatsoever. Okay. Think. What was I doing when it showed up? right? Desperately trying to memorize vocabulary, concentrating super hard, wanting the words to just download into my brain like a software update. Back to the book, maximum concentration, wanting to absorb the content. Splat. The jelly blob reappeared, extending from my head down onto the book page. And the instant it touched the paper, something clicked. The words I hadn't fully memorized, yet suddenly felt carved into my mind. Crystal clear. Every symbol, every pronunciation, every meaning. Just there, like I'd known them my whole life. Wait, that thing came from me. The moment I got distracted thinking about it, the blob vanished again. Of course. Time to experiment. Close my eyes. Concentrated. Imagine being able to see things without looking. I want to see what's on the book. I want to see what's on the book. And then, with my eyes firmly shut, I could see. The book on the desk. The basket beside it. One leg of the bed. Everything within roughly a 1-meter radius, viewed from every angle simultaneously, like having cameras pointed inward from every direction of a sphere. Beyond that meter? Total darkness. Open my eyes. The weird omnidirectional vision disappeared. Normal sight returned. I rubbed my head the way every adult in this village had been rubbing mine, as if the gesture was contagious. This thing, it's basically divine sense. Like in those cultivation novels where martial artists project their spiritual awareness outward to scan their surroundings and memorize ancient techniques. Paused. Except whose divine sense looks like a jello pudding. And this range is pathetic, 1 meter? I can barely scan past my own desk. Somewhere, in a completely different world, a certain all-knowing white divine beast was lounging on a couch, tearing open a bag of potato chips, watching something on TV. It was one drop of blood. What do you want, a Ferrari? After discovering my bootleg divine sense, I spent the rest of the afternoon speed memorizing the dictionary by slapping my jello brain onto each page. Managed to absorb about a quarter of the book before my skull started protesting. 2 confirmed abilities so far. 1. Extend the transparent, putting about 1 meter onto an object and instantly absorb whatever information it contains. Basically a cheat code scanner for books. 2. Expand it as a 1-meter sphere around myself and perceive everything inside in full 360-degree surround vision. Like having security cameras installed inside my own personal bubble. Why did I have this power? Best theory, I'm Chinese. When a Chinese soul enters a world with magical energy systems, it apparently auto-unlocks the traditional cultivation skill tree. National passive ability. Thank you, 5,000 years of civilization. The timing couldn't have been more perfect for Madison's impossible exam. But there was still something bugging me, that weird white glow I saw on literally every person since arriving. What was that? More experiments needed. Later though, because right now I had a date with a furnace. Walked over to Irwin's smithy expecting to find him passed out from last night's binge. Nope. Already up, stretching outside, looking fresh as a daisy. Don't underestimate me, kid. My tolerance is legendary. Remember this. A man who can't hold his liquor can never be a good blacksmith. Not sure about the logic there, but okay, Uncle Irwin. You do you. He showed me a blueprint on the wall, a longsword. Our project for the next few days. My job, operate the bellows. His job, literally everything else. Can I learn to actually hammer stuff? With those noodle arms? Just watch and pick up what you can. First lesson, the fuel. Not regular coal, something called vortex coal, which had spiral grooves on the outside and special channels inside that somehow trapped heat energy. It absorbed energy while burning, then gradually reached a stable temperature of 2,000 degrees Celsius. Hot enough to melt basically any non-magical ore. The furnace itself was made of special materials to handle it, which explained why the room wasn't turning into an oven even with a mini sun burning inside. Unlike normal fire where the outer flame is hotter, we bury materials in the center, where the real heat lives. The flashy surface flames? Useless. All show, no substance. Life lesson or metallurgy lesson? Both, probably. Irwin loaded the vortex coal, added regular coal and kindling, struck his fire steel, and coaxed a flame to life. Now, pull the bellows. Gently, I grabbed the lever and pushed. The resistance was enormous. This thing was built for a grown man's arms, and I had the upper body strength of a wet noodle. Every push and pull felt like rowing a boat uphill. My entire body weight went into each stroke, leaning forward to push, falling backward to pull. Don't baby my bellows, kid. This thing's tougher than you are. Erwin grabbed the lever, slammed it back and forth to demonstrate the proper force. The fire inside roared and swirled. Point taken. I doubled my effort and my sweat production tripled. The room stayed cool at first. The vortex coal was absorbing all the heat. Then, slowly, I started feeling it. A wave of scorching air. That meant the coal had reached ignition and was now burning on its own. See? Once it gets going, the temperature stays stable as long as you keep the air flowing. Modern blacksmithing is honestly pretty foolproof. You can't really mess this up. So congratulations. This is your job from now on. Cool. My job was physically destroying myself operating a medieval air pump. Living the dream. While I turned into a human-shaped puddle of sweat, Erwin went to work. He used long iron tongs to fish or chunks in and out of the coals, checking their color and consistency each time. Through my 1-meter divine sense, eyes closed, full sphere vision, I watched the whole process in detail and immediately ruined the mood for myself because the way he kept dipping or in and pulling it out looked exactly like swishing tripe in a hot pot. 7 dips up, 8 dips down for the perfect texture. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. The majestic art of fantasy blacksmithing reduced to Sichuan dining techniques. I shook my head violently to reset my brain. When the ore surfaces went from jagged and rocky to smooth and round, semi-molten, Erwin called it. He pulled them out and started hammering. The first strike sent sparks flying across the room like fireworks. His massive silhouette, backlit by the furnace glow, hammer rising and falling with mechanical precision. It was genuinely beautiful. Like watching a conductor lead an orchestra, except the orchestra was a chunk of metal and the baton was a 5-kilogram hammer. He was humming something. A little tune, matching the rhythm of his strikes. Ting, 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 ting. Sparks danced. Metal sang. The crusty, boorish blacksmith who screamed about stolen wine last night had transformed into an artist. A blacksmith must trust his hammer. Learn to talk to it. The hammer tells you where the surface is uneven, where impurities hide, where the structure needs tightening. We heat and hammer these ingots hundreds of times, weighing after each cycle. When the weight stops decreasing, the impurities are gone. That's when you have proper forging material. I sat against the wall, silent, watching through my divine sense as the last or chunk dropped into the container. I'd been at this for 4 hours. My arms had stopped being arms and become vaguely arm-shaped pain receptors. Well, get any of that? Erwin crouched down, grabbed my face with his soot-covered hands, and smeared black streaks across my cheeks like war paint. Understand what you saw? I shook my head. Understood, but not completely. That's just step 1. You've got a long way to go. Rest up, then back on the bellows. These ingots need more processing. Back on the bellows. The 3 most terrifying words in any language. For more hours later, the sun was almost down, and I was a puddle on the floor. Literally flat on my back, limbs splayed in random directions, chest burning, sweat forming an actual pond beneath me. My body had filed a class action lawsuit against my brain for workplace abuse. Erwin dropped 3 copper cups into my pocket and handed me a towel. You need to build some muscle, kid. Dry off before you go home. It's cold at night. I dragged the towel across my body with the enthusiasm of a dying fish, somehow stood up, washed the towel, hung it to dry, and staggered not home but to the tavern. Cook took one look at my zombie shuffle into the kitchen and wordlessly pulled out a stool. How was blacksmithing? Nearly killed me. But also kind of amazing. Erwin is. Incredible when he works. I can't even describe it. Haha. That's just who he is. Serious. Pure. Cook handed me a basin of vegetables. If you're too tired, go home and sleep. If you can manage, wash these and sort out the bad ones. My hands were trembling, my back was screaming, and every muscle begged for mercy. But this was just veggie sorting. Easy mode compared to Bello's duty. Plus, my old cat cafe boss had me doing prep work all the time. Muscle memory kicked in. That evening, villagers trickled into the tavern for their daily bread and drinks. Cook baked everything fresh each day, no leftovers, no day-old bread. After washing vegetables, I moved to sifting flour for tomorrow's batch. Medieval flour was full of garbage, little rocks, sand, bran, grass bits, all sorts of fun surprises. No industrial equipment meant sifting by hand, over and over, which was tedious but important. Cook didn't make me sift out all the bran, though. This was peasant bread, not royal pastry. The dark, rough, bran-included result was what everyone expected and could afford. During a quiet moment, Cook and Vinette called me over for dinner. My temporary teacher quizzed me on the characters she'd taught that morning, and I nailed them so well she rewarded me with a wild chicken drumstick. Academic bribery works in every dimension. Walked home under the moonlight, body running on fumes. Lit the fireplace, peeled off my filthy clothes, kicked off my shoes, and face-planted into bed like a falling tree. But the day wasn't done. Dragged myself back up, grabbed the dictionary, squatted by the fireplace, activated the Jello sense. Page by page, I pressed my transparent brain pudding onto the book and absorbed the text directly into memory. It worked beautifully, until it didn't. Cramming that much foreign language into my brain at once created a sensation I can only describe as, imagine pulling an all-nighter in winter, opening the window to freezing wind, and then immediately biting into a block of ice cream. That specific brand of brain freeze where your skull feels like it's splitting along invisible fault lines. I grabbed the thick dictionary and started slapping myself in the head with it, then rolled back and forth on the bed clutching my skull, making sounds that were not words. Finally, utterly spent from a day of bellows pumping, vegetable washing, flour sifting, and aggressive self-education, I massaged my temples, placed the book next to my pillow, lay flat on my back, stared blankly at the ceiling beams with the vacant expression of a man who had seen too much, and passed out. Day 3 in the fantasy world. Jobs acquired, 3. Muscles gained, 0. Brain cells sacrificed, countless. This, cozy life, I named myself after was turning out to be anything but. Bang 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 on my door before dawn even had the decency to show up. Every muscle in my body had filed a restraining order against my brain. My arms, shoulders, and elbows were screaming from yesterday's bellows marathon. Getting out of bed felt like peeling myself off a torture rack. I really don't want to get up. But Asha had said, day after tomorrow morning. And here it was, day after tomorrow morning. And there he was, standing at my door in the pitch dark like a wilderness-themed alarm clock. Hooded cloak, bow on his back, spear in hand, mysterious leather bag at his feet. Let's go? If you want to hunt, get used to this schedule. No, good morning. No, how'd you sleep? Just cold efficiency. Lena had clearly trained this man. Minutes later, 2 figures, one tall and intimidating, one tiny and wrapped in an unfinished fur hide like a lost bear cub, were speed-walking up a mountain trail in the freezing pre-dawn darkness. Uncle Asha, why do we have to wake up this early? Calling a guy with Lena's exact energy level, Uncle, in a little kid's voice made my soul cringe, but I was committed to the act. Animals head to water and grazing areas at dawn to eat. During the heat, they hide. At dusk, they return to their dens. On bright moonlit nights, they roam and forage. Dawn and dusk are when prey is most active and easiest to find, near water sources, clearings, and mountain passes. Fresh tracks from the morning still hold dewdrops inside them, making them easy to follow. Once the sun rises, the dew evaporates and you lose that advantage. Asha was patient, I'll give him that. His raspy voice delivered wilderness survival lectures like a nature documentary narrator who happened to also be an assassin. Then, silence. Just like riding with Lena through the forest, except on foot and colder. The forest was beautiful in that terrifying way. Dewy grass, dim light filtering through canopy, absolute quiet except for the occasional bird flap that made the silence feel even more ominous. Asha chopped a branch off a tree, trimmed it clean, and handed it to me. Use this as a walking stick. The ground's slippery. Last thing we need is you falling. Thanks, I whispered, unsure if speaking at normal volume would summon something horrible. Then came the wind lesson. He licked his finger, held it up, and explained, wet finger. The cold side tells you wind direction. Most prey has sharp noses. If we're upwind, our scent travels straight to them. Scares off the timid ones, attracts the dangerous ones. Neither is good. He held up 2 fingers and chanted something. Eliminer les odeurs, and a tiny spiral of air swirled up from the ground around us, lifting dead leaves into a brief miniature tornado before dying out. Smell elimination spell. Temporarily removes your scent. But we're alive. We keep sweating, keep producing odor. Sometimes smearing animal dung on yourself is honestly more practical. He said that last part with zero irony. Just straight-faced. Yes, sometimes you gotta wear poop. This world was wonderful. You can't use magic yet, so for now, dung, water, or crushed plant juice. Whatever masks your smell. My ears perked up at, can't use magic yet. Uncle Asha, how do I learn magic? That's complicated. When Clutter gets back from town, have him take you to the city. He knows more about that stuff. Fair enough. Filed that away for later. We reached a tree with a platform built high in the branches. Asha's hunting rest stop. Less, treehouse. More, plywood shelf with a roof. He scaled the trunk like a spider, then dropped a rope for me since my climbing abilities ranked somewhere between wet cat and falling potato. For now, I'll pull you up. Eventually, I'll train you to move freely through these trees on your own. Right now, a rabbit has better escape odds than you. Harsh, but mathematically accurate. He swept the surrounding branches with his spear, checking for snakes, birds of prey, and poisonous bugs that might have moved in. Cold season, so we're fine. But in warmer months, always check before resting. Things crawl up here. Noted. Add, death by surprise snake, to my growing list of fantasy world anxieties. Breakfast was black bread and a mysterious dark cylinder. I sniffed it. Faintly metallic. Bit into it, soft, herby, kind of like black pudding. Blood, milk, animal fat, onion, rosemary, and oats. Blood sausage. I was eating blood sausage for breakfast on a wooden platform in a dark forest at 5 in the morning. My past life self would have been so confused. It's actually not bad. When I was wandering, I ate everything. Just can't handle goat cheese. Asha's permanently frozen face cracked the tiniest smile. That stuff is pretty terrible. Vindication. Even the hardened wilderness warrior agreed that goat cheese was an abomination. After breakfast, we descended and went deeper into the forest. Dark. Quiet. Every shadow looked like it was hiding something that wanted to eat me. I stuck to Asha like a barnacle on a warship. He stopped and poked through some dead leaves with his spear. Underneath, a pale blue, semi-transparent blob of something. It looked like a wet mud clump, but alive. Go ahead. Touch it. I poked it. Bouncy. Like jellyfish skin. Sticky liquid on the surface. I could see bits of leaves trapped inside. Slime. Extremely low-level monster. Basically harmless. They eat bugs, dead leaves, rotting matter, and animal waste. Nature's garbage disposal. Their insides contain a mild digestive acid. No food value, so nothing bothers eating them. No natural predators. But, if you camp outdoors, always check your surroundings. I've seen plenty of people suffocate in their sleep when a slime crawled over their mouth and nose. I stared at the cute little blob. It stared back with no eyes. Death by slime suffocation. While sleeping. In a world where this was considered the weakest monster. Don't worry, they're slow and can't jump high. Not dangerous to anyone who's awake. Just gross. He also mentioned that in some regions, slimes could become dangerous variants depending on what they digested. But not here. Small mercies. The little blue blob hopped about 4 inches off the ground and plopped back into its leaf pile. Adorable. Deadly. This world in a nutshell. Further ahead, a tree with scratched bark, tufts of brown-black fur stuck to it, and 3-layered footprints in the mud below. Outer ring, claw marks. Middle, toe prints, thick as fingers. Inner, the pad. 5 claws, same as human fingers. This print belongs to a bear. A brown bear. Just woke up from hibernation. Looking for food. Lost about 1/3 of its body fat during winter, so it won't be as round as you'd expect. His tone was so casual, he might as well have been discussing the weather. This calmed me down. If the professional hunter wasn't worried, a post-hibernation bear probably wasn't that threatening in a world with cyclopes and evil giants. We followed the tracks silently until we heard rushing water. Asha already knew about the stream. He stopped, blocked my path with his arm, and nodded toward a brown shape moving near the water. I was thinking, okay, so now he sets up a trap, right? Or maybe positions for a tactical approach. Surely there's a plan. Asha threw his spear, and missed. The spear grazed the bear's back and thunked into a tree behind it. The bear spun around instantly. Even skinny from hibernation, it was massive. It roared, a deep, bone-rattling sound that scattered every bird in a 100-meter radius. Teeth bared, shoulder muscles bulging, It charged straight at us with a dark reddish-black aura radiating pure murderous fury. Wait, dark reddish-black. Not the white glow everyone else had. That was new and terrifying. And I had zero time to think about it because a bear was sprinting at my face. My brain short-circuited. Multiple conflicting emotions slammed into each other like a freeway pileup. Should I be scared? But Asha's a professional. Did he miss on purpose? Why would he miss on purpose? Why is its aura different from everyone else's? Oh God, it's right here. I froze. Completely. Couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The bear's claws swung past my nose close enough to feel the breeze on my nostrils. Then Asha grabbed the back of my shirt. Just like Lina on the horse, apparently, grabbed the orphan by the neck, was standard military protocol, yanked me sideways, and as we passed the bear, my hand reached out on pure autopilot, and I touched it. Soft. Fluffy. Actually really nice fur. My brain was in full panic mode, and my hand was out here petting a charging bear. Priorities. Self. Priorities. Asha leaped into the air with me on his shoulder, unshouldered his bow mid-jump, and put an arrow through the bear's eye with a sound like a snapping cable. The bear screamed, slammed the ground with its paws, and locked its remaining eye on us with absolute rage. He set me down, drew his bow again. Second arrow, through the other eye, while the now blind bear reared up on its hind legs, mouth open, ready to slam down on us. Asha calmly shouldered his bow, pulled his spear from the tree behind the bear eye in passing, stepped forward, and drove it straight through the open mouth into the brain. Total elapsed time, maybe 6 seconds. 3 weapons used. 0 wasted movements. Complete pelt cell for more. That's why he didn't use the spear body shots. He was protecting the fur value. This man missed on purpose to provoke a charge, then executed a perfect 3-step kill sequence while carrying his 6-year-old, all for better market price on the leather. I was kneeling on the ground, hands shaking uncontrollably, heart trying to escape my ribcage, unable to even clench a fist. Total system failure. All courage reserves depleted. How are you doing? Asha planted his spear in the ground and reached out a hand. Are you okay? I'm sorry, mister. Asha, I didn't know. I'm really, really sorry. It's fine, kid. Nobody controls their fear from day one. Soldiers who wet themselves on their first battlefield can still become generals someday. Do this a few more times, and you'll get used to it. I believe you'll do better next time. He cast smell elimination on the bear's corpse to suppress the blood scent, and the clean forest air brought me back to reality. Let's move. The blood smell is spreading. Could attract something worse. On the way back, think about what I did and what you can learn from it. We humans aren't like some powerful races born with natural advantages. We grow like this, little by little, one scary moment at a time. I grabbed his hand, got pulled to my feet, and followed him back through the forest on shaking legs, replaying the fight in my head. Asha missed on purpose. Provoked the charge to control the angle. Shot both eyes to blind it. Used the mouth, the only unprotected opening, for the kill. Preserved the pelt. Protected me the entire time. Every move calculated. Every outcome planned. And me? I pet the bear. That was my contribution to the hunt. I pet the bear. Growth, huh? Little by little? Yeah, I had a long way to go. The walk back from the hunt was its own special kind of torture. Asha carried a 400-kilogram dead bear on his back like it was a backpack. Wasn't even breathing hard. Meanwhile, I was dragging his iron spear behind me like a caveman who'd given up on life, the tip scraping a sad little line in the dirt. I grabbed it thinking I could do a cool warrior pose. Maybe swing it around a couple times. Looked tough. Couldn't even lift it. This thing weighs as much as a motorcycle. How do you just throw it like a javelin? Irwin makes quality weapons with premium iron. If that tree hadn't been thick enough, the spear would have gone clean through. Asha said this while literally carrying a bear. Not even winded. Good exercise for you, though. From now on, you carry the spear on every trip down the mountain. My arms were already filing for divorce from my shoulders. Back at Asha's yard, I collapsed on the ground like a starfish, one arm over my eyes, internally chanting, no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. While tears of exhaustion formed, but never fell, because even my tear ducts were too tired. Meanwhile, Asha got to work like a butchering machine. Laid the bear on a stone slab, slit the skin with surgical precision, drained the blood, scooped out steaming organs into a bucket. And then, this was the impressive part, ran his knife between skin and meat so perfectly that when he grabbed two bare paws and gave one gentle shake, the entire pelt separated from the body without a single piece of meat stuck to it. Want to learn? My eyes were the size of dinner plates. Yes, he pulled out a massive wooden frame, clamped the bearskin tight, and we carried it to his backyard, which turned out to be a whole fur-drying operation, dozens of frames with different animal pelts stretched across them. A leather workshop hiding behind a hunter's cottage. Fresh skin has tons of moisture and oil. If you leave it piled up, it rots, molds, and gets eaten by bugs. So you scrape it clean and stretch it on a frame to air dry. Skip this step and the hide shrinks 20%. Kills the resale value. Then he grabbed a pre-dried wolf pelt for a demonstration. Two buckets appeared, one with water, one with suspicious green liquid. Dried hide is called raw skin. Before tanning, soak it in clean water to soften it back up and wash off dirt and blood. You do this part, while I dunked the wolf fur and sloshed it around. Asha filtered the green liquid through linen cloth, straining out chunks of bark and leaf debris. This is tanning solution, made from boiled tree bark and leaves. Lots of plants work. Once the water in my bucket turned murky, he checked the skin's softness, laid it fur side down on a table, and then, casually, like he was ordering coffee, chanted a spell over the tanning liquid. That was Arrow's Edge, a cantrip for increasing arrow damage. I modified it to work on liquids instead, weakened it way down. All it does now is make the liquid penetrate faster. He'd hacked a combat spell into a crafting tool. Just improvised a magical shortcut for leather tanning. This man was using cheat codes in real life. He spent a long time slapping the hide with a wooden block and kneading it by hand, working the green solution deep into every fiber. Without magic, he explained, a bear hide would need days to fully absorb the tanning agent. After that, drying, scraping, re-tanning, dyeing, oiling, conditioning, and stretching for final shaping. Lots of steps. I'll teach you gradually. By midday, Asha had the tanned pelt rolled up, scraped white fat off the bear meat, divided everything into buckets, and loaded them onto a small cart. Isekai'd, Erwin said you have forge duty this afternoon. Take this meat and fat to the tavern for me. Cook will handle the rest. I'm going back into the mountains to set some wolf traps with the bear guts as bait. And, just like that, he shouldered his weapons, grabbed the bucket of intestines, and walked back into the forest like he was going for a casual stroll and not re-entering a death zone full of monsters. At the tavern, Vanette helped me unload the meat buckets to the backyard where Cook was firing up a strange-looking smoker to turn everything into preserved meat. ASAP before it spoiled. Uncle Cook, what's the white stuff for? I pointed at the fat, playing dumb even though my biology degree was screaming lipids inside my head. Animal fat. We melt it down, let it cool, mix it with other stuff, and make candles. So all the candles here are made from that. Oh no, no, no. Cook waved his hands. Fat candles smell bad and produce black smoke. The tavern uses fish oil or beeswax candles. More expensive, but cleaner. Back when we used fat candles, Vanette had to scrub soot off everything for hours. And that stuff you cook with, is it the same thing? That's butter, kid. Totally different. Made from sheep or cow milk. Animal fat is too scarce to waste on cooking. Better to make candles or sell it. No vegetable oil either, apparently. My inner chef wept quietly. This world's cooking technology had a long way to go. Afternoon. Cook handed me a chunk of roasted bear meat as a snack, and I walked to Erwin's forge chewing on it. The blacksmith was already hammering away, rhythmic clangs echoing through the village like industrial music. Perfect timing, Isekai'd. Fire up the forge, then come watch how I turn an ingot into a weapon. The coals were still warm. I shoveled in more vortex coal, then found a spot where Erwin couldn't see my face, closed my eyes, and activated divine sense to watch his technique in full surround vision. Yesterday I told you, trust your hammer. Every strike sends feedback through the handle. The force that bounces back, the sound it makes. Different metals, different states, different responses. Right now, this spot I'm hitting, the internal structure is loose. The feedback force is weaker than expected. The sound is duller. You hear the difference. I strain with every fiber of my being. Regular ears? Nothing. Louder. Ha ha ha. Wrong. Keep listening. I close my eyes again. Full divine sense, sphere active. 1 meter radius of hyper-awareness focused entirely on the hammer strikes. Ting, ting. Erwin was reminiscing as he worked. His own teacher had been a scruffy dwarf alcoholic who was meticulous about forging, but a complete mess in every other aspect of life. The dwarf used to flick his forehead with magic-infused fingers every time he gave a wrong answer. Where was that old drunk now? Probably causing chaos in some city tavern somewhere. Ting, ting, nothing. I can't hear any difference. Sweat on my forehead. Brain straining. Divine sense burning through my mental stamina like jet fuel. Ting, ting. Then something shifted. Through the divine sense, the hammer strikes stopped being just sharp metallic clinks. They stretched. The short, flat sound became long and resonant, like iron beads dropping onto a porcelain plate. Ting, ting, like temple bells echoing across a silent mountain valley. Dong, dong. The hammer and the bell merged in my mind. The tail end of each strike rang out clear and distinct. I could hear the difference between dense metal and loose metal, between pure iron and trapped impurities. 2 strikes, 2 completely different songs. My eyes flew open in excitement, and instantly, without divine sense, the magical acoustic world collapsed back into ordinary clanging on a tiny anvil. ARGH, I slapped my thigh in frustration. Without the cheat mode jello brain, my regular ears couldn't tell the difference at all. Erwin caught my mood swing and chuckled. Don't rush it. I'm just showing you the method. You don't have to master it today. If you keep paying attention to the sounds deliberately, one day it'll become second nature. That's when you'll be on your way to becoming a real blacksmith. That evening, my head was throbbing. A full afternoon of maintaining divine sense while processing acoustic data had fried my brain like an overclocked CPU. The phantom sound of hammering echoed in my skull nonstop. Ting, 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 like an earworm from hell. Erwin decided he deserved a drink and dragged me to the tavern, where we bumped into Asha returning his cart. Cook counted out the hunter's payment in silver coins, tossed the pouch over, and pulled me into the kitchen. Out in the main hall, the village gossip machine fired up. How's little Cozy-Eyed doing with the smithing, Erwin? He's been here 2 days. What can he learn? But I'll say this. For his age, I've never seen a kid that focused. Maybe your teaching is the problem? Excuse me? Has any tool I sold you ever broken? Being good at forging and being good at teaching are 2 very different things, buddy. True. Don't corrupt our polite little Cozy-Eye with your rough manners. Vinette, another round. Coming. Vinette poured sage wine with practiced efficiency, smiling at the chatter. That hard-working little boy really had charmed the entire village. Heard Asha brought back a bear today, and he took Cozy-Eye with him, right? So technically, Cozy-Eye already wrestles bears. That's not how math works. But still better than someone who's scared to even enter the forest. Hey, that was years ago. You peed yourself when you saw a bear. I was young and stupid. Young? Cozy-Eye is younger than you were, and he pet the bear, while the grown-ups roasted each other over cheap wine. The subject of their gossip was in the kitchen, washing vegetables, head nodding forward, almost face-planting into the lettuce. Cook grabbed my shoulder. Hey, Cozy-Eye, you falling asleep? Want me to tell everyone to give you a few days off? I'm fine. Massive yawn. My brain was mush from overusing divine sense all afternoon, but I couldn't exactly explain that. Just getting used to the new schedule. I'll adjust in a couple days. All right. But if it gets too much, say something. Last thing we need is people accusing us of child labor abuse. He was joking. I was literally doing child labor. But honestly, somewhere between the bear hunt at dawn, the leather tanning at morning, the forge hammering all afternoon, the vegetable washing at evening, and the vocabulary cramming at night, this exhausting, ridiculous, overwhelming new life was starting to feel less like survival and more like home. A really, really tiring home where everything hurt and my brain was melting. But home. A few days into my new routine, I'd gotten good enough with divine sense to tell the difference between hammer strikes on loose metal versus dense metal. Progress. I was switching between normal vision and jello vision, trying to train my body to respond to the sensory input, when the sound of galloping hooves clattered up the village road and stopped right outside the forge. A voice, cheerful, bouncy, radiating chaotic energy, burst through the doorway. Hey, Erwin, want to go drink with Cook? In walked the most extra human being I'd met in either lifetime. Red-brown, medium-length hair with a braid dangling in front, black wide-brimmed hat in hand, leather jacket over a black and white patterned shirt, and a golden badge engraved with scales hanging from his chest. He looked like a fantasy world fashion influencer who'd taken a wrong turn into a blacksmith shop. Huh? Who's this kid? Your new apprentice? Before I could even open my mouth, this stranger picked me up, coal-stained apron and all, and held me up in the air like a trophy. Zero hesitation. Zero concern about the soot now covering his fancy clothes. Erwin explained my situation. The stranger set me down, pulled off his gloves, and stuck out his hand with theatrical formality. Might be a bit late, but welcome, little cozy eye. I'm Clutter, a merchant who lives in Novus. This was the legendary Clutter. The man who'd been getting inventory in town for like a week. The one everyone kept mentioning was probably drunk somewhere. He shook my tiny dirty hand like we were signing a business treaty, then remembered something, ducked into the forge, pulled a money pouch from his belt, dropped it into an iron lockbox with practiced muscle memory, and immediately slung his arm around Erwin's shoulders. Come on, let's go drink. I brought back several barrels of Weizen. It'll go bad if we don't drink it fast. Erwin didn't move. The man was a fortress of composure. Clutter played his trump card, my treat. Let's go. Instant capitulation. They were on the cart and gone in 3 seconds flat, leaving me standing alone in the forge hearing two voices fading into the distance. Cozy Eye, put out the fire and close up. For me, little Cozy Eye, come to the tavern. Big bro will buy you something yummy. These adults were abandoning a child in a forge full of hot metal to go drink beer. Parenting standards in this world were truly inspirational. At the tavern, Clutter was already in full performance mode. He set down the beer barrels, spotted Vinette, and instantly deployed his charm offensive. Miss Vinette, you get more beautiful every time I'm away. You say that literally every single time you come back. Because it's true. When I see you daily, I only notice that you're pretty. But after being away, I realize your beauty has somehow leveled up. Smooth. Painfully smooth. Vinette was unmoved. Clutter slid into the kitchen, deposited his earnings for cook, and started sniffing around like a truffle pig. What smells amazing? Can I get rabbit stew? The ones in town are so stingy with seasoning. Very impoverished, very disappointing. Cook shooed him out, then pulled rabbits from the cellar and started working his magic, skewering, grilling, then transferring golden brown meat into a clay pot with butter for a quick fry. Diced onions, my mashed peas, ground ginger, cinnamon, rosemary, Cook's answer to everything. A splash of fruit vinegar and wine, hot water, lid on, wait. Meanwhile, Clutter committed his first crime against Vinette's moral code. He poured me a cup of Weizen. Golden liquid, minimal carbonation. I took an innocent sip, pretending to be a clueless kid tasting alcohol for the first time, then stuck my tongue out in pretend disgust. My actual internal review. Faint malt and straw aroma. Apple-like freshness, missing the characteristic bitterness, but otherwise, this was beer. Primitive, unhopped, short shelf life beer, but unmistakably beer. Whack. Vinette's wooden tray connected with the back of Clutter's skull. Children, don't drink alcohol. She snatched my cup away. Clutter accepted his punishment with the grace of a man who'd been hit by that tray many, many times before. Working at the tavern had taught me a lot about this world's alcohol scene. Sage wine was basically grape wine infused with sage herbs. Most alcoholic beverages here were grape wine remixed with different fruits or spices. The Weizen, wheat-based, malt-fermented, was a newer thing, popular for its unique taste, but impossible to produce at scale because it spoiled too fast. And in that moment, my biology degree brain lit up like a Christmas tree. I knew exactly what was missing. Hops. The magical ingredient that wouldn't be added to beer for thousands of years in my old world's history. The thing that gave beer its signature bitterness and acted as a natural preservative, extending shelf life dramatically. And in this world, that crucial plant? Currently classified as a useless weed called snake hemp grass, its flowers used for ugly brown dye, its stems braided into rope. A light bulb, no, a giant golden exclamation mark, appeared above my head. If I could figure out the full brewing process with hops, beer could be mass-produced, shelf-stable, and sold everywhere. My financial problems? Solved. My dream of a cozy life? Funded. But then reality kicked in. My brewing knowledge was surface level at best. I had zero production equipment. I was 6. Nobody would take a 6-year-old's beer recipe seriously. And Vinette had just demonstrated what happens to people who give children alcohol. Skull trauma via serving tray. Curses. I punched my palm in frustration. The cozy life retreated another step into the horizon. That evening, the Ways-In drew a full house. Every villager showed up except Grandma Madison, who apparently preferred solitude over socializing. Probably back home yelling at her potions. Clutter handed Asha his first sale earnings. The hunter weighed the pouch and raised an eyebrow. Prices went up, spring's here. Adventurers are flooding the big towns. Workshops are stockpiling materials for equipment. Furs and Irwin's weapons are fetching premium prices. I made decent profit riding the wave. That's why I splurged on all this Ways-In. Uncle Clutter, what are adventurers exactly? I was sitting next to him, drinking Vinette-approved apple juice, legs swinging because they couldn't reach the floor. Genuine curiosity. I'd heard the word thrown around but wanted the full picture. Clutter's hand landed on my head. Again, I was starting to think head patting was a regional custom, like bowing in Japan or cheek kissing in France. Novus Village, where affection is expressed through aggressive scalp contact. You asked the right person, little bro. Your big bro Clutter travels all the major cities. I've got stories. He smoothly upgraded himself from uncle to big brother, sneaky. When countries expand their borders, there's always unknown territory at the edges. Some people chase potential treasure. Others crave the thrill. Brave or crazy, souls risked their lives exploring the unknown. Deep canyons, dark underground ruins, uncharted wilderness. That's where the word adventurer comes from. Today, the world is still dangerous outside city walls. Wild beasts and monsters everywhere. Even our little village isn't technically safe, but the scenery's gorgeous, the soil's rich, there's no city defense tax or property tax, and we're close enough to a major town that the danger is manageable. Some villages aren't so lucky. OW, whack. Vinette's tray of justice struck again. Don't tell him scary things. Sorry, got carried away. Where was I? Oh right. See the notice board in the tavern? Those are commission requests from nearby towns. People need materials for potions, weapons, clothing, all sorts of stuff. Magic users especially are desperate for rare ingredients. Some items are literally priceless. And then there's the treasure angle. Dead adventurers leave behind fortunes in dangerous places. Legends say greedy goblins hoard gold. Dragons collect treasures. Find even a fraction of that, and you're set for life. People flock to OW whack. Stop putting dangerous ideas in his head. Cozy Eye, do not go treasure hunting in scary places. It's all nonsense. I nodded frantically, watching Vinette march away with her tray of righteous violence, satisfied. Clutter rubbed the growing collection of bumps on his skull. Tough crowd for storytelling these days. Anyway, like Vinette said, it's dangerous. But where there's big reward, there's always people willing to gamble. That's how adventurer became a profession. The real valuable leads? Nobody posts those publicly. People guard rare material locations like state secrets. The notice board mostly has boring stuff. Buying common herbs, escort jobs, investigation requests, monster cleanup. For serious quests, you go to the Adventurers Guild. As for the romantic ideal, exploring the world, seeing grand vistas, challenging dragons, living free, those adventurers only exist in bard songs now. He took a long sip of Ways-In, sighed contentedly, spooned rabbit stew onto black bread, and started eating with genuine bliss. MF, Cozy Eye. MF, do you even know what our country is called? No. Honest answer. Perfectly reasonable for an orphan. Clutter's eyes sparkled. Another chance to lecture. Unacceptable. How will you navigate the world without knowing your own nation? Let Big Bro educate you. It actually ties back to adventurers from 700 years ago. According to history, about 1,000 years back, some dude got corrupted by evil forces, fell into darkness, called himself the Demon King, and tried to conquer all of humanity through sheer violence. Every era has people with that kind of stupid ambition, but this guy actually came close. Nations united in an unprecedented alliance. War raged across the entire world for nearly 300 years, and during that time, countless heroic adventurers rose to fight. One of them used a forbidden spell, sacrificed his own life to take the Demon King down with him. Mutual destruction. He ended 3 centuries of darkness and was posthumously called the hero. In that hero's party, there happened to be a prince, Edric III. After the war, when he became king, he renamed the entire country to honor his fallen friend. The hero's name? Sacrifice Jackmund. Clutter let that land with dramatic weight. I sat there with my apple juice, legs still swinging, processing the fact that I was living in a country literally named after a guy whose name meant sacrifice, fantasy worlds, and their naming conventions. Subtle as a brick. But somewhere in the back of my mind, between the beer plans and the language studies and the blacksmithing bruises and the bear-petting trauma, a tiny spark of something ignited. Adventurers. Magic academies. A world full of unknowns and possibilities. Maybe cozy didn't have to mean boring. Clutter finished his history lesson with a flourish. The country was called the Jackmund Duchy, named after a hero who sacrificed himself to kill a demon king 700 years ago. The royal family never renamed it after themselves, just kept honoring their fallen friend. Apparently, there was even a statue in the capital. When Vinette went to pour drinks, Clutter leaned in with a conspiratorial whisper. Why? You want to be a great adventurer? No, no, no. Adventuring sounds like a death wish. But I do want to become a great mage. We both checked over our shoulders for Vinette and her tray of justice. Coast clear. Learning magic is complicated, Clutter admitted. People with even a little magical aptitude can use basic spells, like Asha, like me. But anyone with real talent goes to a magic academy for proper training. Alchemy, enchantment, potion making, spellcasting. The whole hidden world opens up for gifted students. Keyword, gifted. At age 10, any kid can go to a mage tower in a major city and take a free aptitude test. 2 criteria, magical affinity and physical fitness. Magical affinity is everything. It determines how fast you learn spells and how powerful you can get. Low affinity? You're stuck with weak stuff. Like me, I can barely manage 3rd-ring spells. Most academies want at least a C grade in affinity. If both your affinity and physical fitness hit D grade, some academies will take you for a hybrid path, combining magic with weapons. Less need for high-level spells. Below that, don't bother. Save the tuition money and study on your own. But there's a 3rd option, a magic theory exam, purely written, designed for dedicated scholars. And honestly, for rich nobles who failed the aptitude test. The content is massive, memorization alone won't cut it, and you basically need a private magic tutor to have any chance. Tons of applicants every year. Barely anyone passes. Clutter scratched his head sheepishly. Full disclosure, I took that exam once. Failed spectacularly. Ha ha ha. If you want to learn magic, little cozy eye, you'll have to work hard. I can see you're diligent. Everyone in the village likes that about you. But realistically, we can't help much. I'm just a SOSO merchant. Asha's a retired ranger. The only person here who might actually be useful is Madison. He saw my mood dip and squeezed my shoulder. Hey, having a dream is never wrong. While other kids your age are still clueless, you've already been through hell and come out tougher for it. Tell you what, next time I go to the city for inventory, want to come along? I'll take you to a shop that sells magic books. Really? Uncle Clutter, call me Big Brother or the offer is revoked. He slapped the table dramatically. That night, back home by the fireplace, I dove into the herbology introduction guide with renewed determination. Thanks to my Jello divine sense, I'd already mastered the continental writing system pretty thoroughly. But I kept visiting Vinette daily for lessons, pretending to learn at a gifted but believable pace instead of my actual cheat code speed. Had to maintain the cover story. Budroot grass, upright stem, minimal branching, leaves alternate, elliptical ovate, edges slightly wavy. Extensive root system with numerous short branches resembling seedlings, used to prepare basic solutions. Even as an intro-level textbook, this herbology guide was a nightmare. Most apprentices quit because of this book alone. Dense terminology, precise descriptions, hundreds of plant entries. Without my brain-pudding scanner, even an adult intellect would need a year or 2 to memorize everything. Lying in bed, I held up my small hand in the moonlight. Magic seems like it'd be soul-based, right? The question is whether my transplanted Chinese soul even has magical aptitude in this world. Either way, I need to get my hands on exam prep materials. Other things might be uncertain, but when it comes to taking tests, I cracked my tiny knuckles. Nobody in this world knows the art of examination warfare better than a Chinese graduate student. 2 months passed. My body had adapted to the brutal daily schedule. Early morning hunts with Asha, forge work with Irwin, kitchen duty with Cook, literacy sessions with Vinette, and late-night study by firelight. I wasn't collapsing into bed like a corpse anymore. Actually had energy left over for evening memorization. Truth was, I'd finished absorbing the entire herbology book a full month ago. But rushing to Madison's doorstep after 30 days screaming, I memorized everything, would raise way too many eyebrows. A 6-year-old illiterate mastering a foreign writing system and a pharmacology textbook in 1 month? That's not gifted child territory. That's suspicious entity requiring investigation territory. I used the extra month to actually understand the content instead of just memorizing it. Cross-referenced the book descriptions with the actual plants growing in Madison's front garden. She noticed me lurking around her herb beds, shot me a few sharp glances, but said nothing. Passive approval from the ice queen of pharmacy. Then came exam day. You're telling me you went from completely illiterate to mastering the continental language and memorizing the entire herbology introduction guide in 2 months? Madison sat in her wooden chair like a judge at a tribunal, face carved from stone, eyes drilling holes through my skull. I believe I mentioned, you get 1 chance. Fail, and I don't care if Ostic himself comes begging. You will never set foot in this house again. You understand that? Yes, Grandma Madison. Very well. Deep breath. Since you're this confident, I won't dampen your enthusiasm. Follow me to the back. The back garden was a full-scale medicinal herb nursery. Rows of carefully cultivated plants in individual pots, organized with the precision of a research laboratory. The air smelled like earth and green things and possibility. I've seen you studying the plants in my front yard. Let's see if you can handle more varieties. Identify them. Tell me their taste, smell, and medicinal properties. Deep breath. Here we go. Garcinia. Resin forms irregular cylindrical or blocky shapes, reddish-brown or orange-brown. Exterior covered with yellow-green powder frost, visible longitudinal striations. Hard and brittle texture, easily fractured, showing bluish-brown waxy luster inside. Taste, sour and astringent. Treats impact swelling, wound bleeding, and burns. Primary component in healing potions. I moved from plant to plant, rattling off descriptions like a walking encyclopedia. When I hit species that weren't in the intro book, and there were many, this was a master's private collection, I simply skipped them. Madison had given me an intro textbook, not an advanced one. She wasn't testing whether I could guess beyond my materials. She was testing whether I'd mastered what she assigned. Before we even reached the back of the garden, she cut me off. Enough. Come back inside. Poker face. Completely unreadable. My heart was hammering. Back in the cottage, she pointed to her workstation. Rows of glass bottles and jars containing processed ingredients. These are semi-prepared herb materials. Identify the original plants using only their appearance, smell, and physical state. My fists clenched. This was the real test. Dried, crushed, extracted, transformed herbs that looked nothing like their original form. If I hadn't spent that extra month actually understanding the material instead of just memorizing pictures, this would have been impossible. I opened the first bottle. Layered structure resembling green wings unfolding. When dried, curls into a ball shape. This is Phoenix cinnabar grass. This container gives off a slight warmth when opened. Contents are dark red pointed objects. These are fire hawthorn thorns. This powder shows different colors from different angles. Dried and ground phantom skirt petals. One after another, I identified every recognizable material. My confidence grew with each correct answer. These processed samples all retained distinctive characteristics of their source plants. For someone who'd memorized the entire textbook with photographic jello-brain precision and cross-referenced real specimens for a month, not that hard. Stop. Your memory is quite good. Memorizing this book in under 2 months, I'll acknowledge that. You can stay. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. She dipped a finger into a vial and smeared something on my nose. Ghost nightmare mushroom spores are toxic even when dried. Don't leave them exposed to air too long. Be more careful next time. And let me be clear, for an actual apprentice, you are nowhere near qualified. I'm accepting you purely because of your effort and apparent talent. The assessment isn't over. From now on, I'll provide advanced pharmacology texts and some of my personal recipe notes. The notes stay here. You read them in my house. Never take them home. I'll test your progress periodically. Whether you spend your other time hunting with Asha or hammering iron with Erwin, I don't care. I judge results. If results don't satisfy me, well, you know what I mean. Thank you, truly. Don't thank me. My standards are higher than most. Passing means you earned it. Now come here. She walked me to her preparation area, spotlessly clean, not a single material residue anywhere, and began my first real lesson. Today I'll demonstrate basic solution preparation. Starting tomorrow, this becomes your job. She summoned a small knife, just floated it over with casual magic like that was normal, opened a preservation cabinet that breathed cold air and flickered with blue light inside, and began. Fresh plants should be stored with roots and leaves intact to preserve their medicinal properties. Use only what you need when you need it. 4 whole plant preparations. Just clean, air dry the surface, and weigh. 4 root only or leaf only preparations. Remove everything else cleanly. Any leftover parts will dilute the potency. She held up a familiar plant. Budroot grass. You've memorized this entry more than once. Her knife work was surgical. Snip, stem, and leaves gone, just the root tendrils remaining. Cut flat above the first root tendril for a clean root sample. Cut at the leaf-stem junction for clean leaves. Simple. Between different materials, wash your tools and work surface with distilled water. This bottle here. Someone proved that water condensed from steam weighs less, meaning fewer impurities, less interference with potions. Her palm glowed red as she passed it over the budroot, evaporating the water droplets instantly. Drying spell. Don't use it if you can't control it. Some plants change properties when heated. Weigh out 100 grams of drained budroot roots. A few non-clustering water droplets won't matter. Add to 1 liter of boiling distilled water, boiling first, then add the roots. Brew for 10 minutes. Transfer the extract to a container and top up to 1 liter total. Otherwise, your concentration is wrong. For large batches, scale proportionally. She poured the solution through a funnel into a clean bottle and sealed it. Repeat the same process with undried phoenix cinnabar grass. Mix both solutions together. That's your basic brewing solution. All exact measurements and steps are in my notes. Go read them. Until you become a true master, every procedure I teach you and every recipe in those notes must be followed exactly. Not just for potion quality. For your safety. Understood? Yes. I understand. I don't have the right to modify proven formulas. Good that you know your place. That's enough for today. Take these 2 materials textbooks home. Study them properly. I walked out clutching 2 new books to my chest, feeling like I'd just passed the most important exam of 2 lifetimes. Madison's approval wasn't warm. It was cold, clinical, and conditional. But it was real. Earned through genuine effort, and a little divine sense cheating, but mostly effort. The pharmaceutical path was open. The Magic Academy dream had a foundation to build on. And somewhere between the bear hunts and the bellows and the black bread and the vocabulary cramming, a former graduate student trapped in a 6-year-old's body was starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, this insane new life was going to work out. Oh, and apparently, back in my old world, that divine white beast was curled up as a fluffy white cat in Lou's cafe, yawning at a TV screen. Honestly, anchoring my power across dimensions to babysit this kid has been exhausting. But he should be fine from here. Even without any special talent, he's got enough tools to survive. No need to worry about him anymore. Now then, I demand the full cat grooming package today. Every single service. My entire cheat code ability existed because a god wanted spa treatment. The universe has a sick sense of humor. April. Sprouting month. 3 months into my new life as a fantasy world orphan/blacksmith apprentice/hunter trainee/pharmacist student/dishwasher. The trees in Novus were budding green, and the tavern started getting visitors, strangers on horseback who'd pay Vanette for a room key and immediately disappear into the mountains. Adventurers, doing adventurer things. Their presence actually made the forest feel slightly less terrifying. Knowing other humans were wandering around in there created a comforting illusion of safety, even if statistically it meant nothing. Asha and I would occasionally bump into these adventurers deeper in the woods. Both parties would freeze, size each other up with suspicion, exchange a silent nod of mutual, "I won't bother you if you don't bother me," and continue on our separate ways. Forest etiquette. One afternoon, after coming down from the mountain, I was practicing hide tanning, scraping leftover bits of flesh and fat off a pelt with a hunting knife. My technique had improved a lot over 3 months, though I still couldn't separate a skin as cleanly as Asha, who could basically peel an animal like a banana. Cartwheels and hooves crunched up outside. Only one person drove a cart to the mountain base. Afternoon, Asha. Little cozy eye. Perfect timing. I'm heading out tomorrow. Help me load up what you're selling. Clutter. Back from wherever Clutter goes when he's not here, which was basically always. While loading furs and bundled bones onto the cart, he casually dropped the bomb. Hey cozy eye. Remember I said I'd take you to the city next time? You coming or what? Huh? I thought you were just drunk talking when you said that. His face went through genuine shock. He threw the fur roll onto the cart, spun around, and flicked my forehead. Little cozy eye, you're not just questioning my drinking habits. You're questioning my integrity as a merchant. I am nothing like those promise-breaking con artists. When I say something, I deliver. How do you think I got Asha and Erwin to let me sell their stuff on credit? Trust. Reliability. Reputation. He jabbed a thumb at Asha, who was standing there with a completely black expression, clearly unimpressed at being used as a character reference without consent. That grumpy face? He trusts me. Erwin's weapons are top tier for non-magical gear. He lets me sell them because my credibility is rock solid. So, are you coming to the city or not? You ungrateful little brat? I glanced at Asha. He gave a small nod. Permission granted. Of course I'm going. But let me tell everyone first. I bolted. Madison's response to my trip announcement. As long as you pass my next test when you get back, I don't care if you go to the moon. Vanette and Cook were visibly worried about Clutter being responsible for a child. Even Chief Ostick came downstairs to deliver a 15-minute safety lecture. The village's collective trust in Clutter's babysitting abilities was not high. Back home, I pried up a floorboard under my bed and retrieved my entire life savings from a small box. 6 silver munis and 14 copper cups. 3 months of work. Erwin's 3 cups per day was my only actual income. Cook fed me for free since I volunteered. Asha shared hunting spoils, and Madison paid in knowledge. After buying basic supplies from Clutter when I first arrived, there'd been almost nothing to spend money on in this village. Now I finally had a chance to buy a magic book, and my wallet was looking thin. At the forge, Erwin heard about my trip and pressed a silver muni into my hand. Buy yourself something nice. After multiple refusals that went nowhere, I accepted it as an advance on next month's wages. My pride had limits, but so did my budget. The road to Rockstead City was gentler by cart than by warhorse. Rolling hills, white clouds drifting backward, spring breeze through the open wagon. The rhythmic creaking of wooden wheels on dirt road. I tried to play it cool, lounging against rolled-up furs like a seasoned traveler, but my heart was racing like it was my first solo trip to the big city, which, across both lifetimes, it kind of was. Clutter glanced back at me pretending to be casual and shook his head. Acts mature, still a kid inside. We reached Rockstead just before the gates closed for the evening. Clutter and the gate guards exchanged greetings like old drinking buddies. You again? Can't you ever arrive early? Let's grab drinks sometime. He flashed his merchant credentials, got waved through, and parked outside an called whisper of the wind. Inside, he spotted the waitress and activated his universal greeting protocol. Miss Sarilina, you get more beautiful every time I'm away. Good evening, Mr. Clutter. I believe you said the exact same thing last visit. Because it's the truth. Distance reveals your increasing beauty. I stood behind him, mouth twisted, experiencing the most intense déjà vu of my life. He'd used this exact script on Vanette. Word for word. The man had one pickup line and deployed it on every woman within a 50-mile radius like a medieval spam bot. He caught my look of thinly veiled contempt and ruffled my hair. Don't judge, kid. You're too young to understand. This is essential adult communication. Then he tried to bribe me with honey wine. Their house special, a little pricey but really good. Low alcohol, kinda sweet. I'll share some with you. No wonder Vanette didn't trust him with children. 5 minutes in the city and he was already corrupting a minor. But honey wine did sound delicious, and mentally I was 25, so one tiny sip couldn't hurt. The golden liquid was clear and shimmering, way prettier than grain-based Weizen or sage wine. I licked the surface, sweet, floral, hints of unknown blossoms. In a world where sugar refining barely existed, anything this sweet would naturally command premium prices. Economics checks out. Dinner was basic, black bread and pea soup, the standard tavern combo. 2 months of culinary wasteland had broken my food standards completely. I dipped bread in soup like a seasoned medieval diner and thought nothing of it. Clutter watched me with the satisfied expression of a co-conspirator. The tavern filled up fast. These people were different from my gentle village folk. Weapons strapped to backs, leather pouches dangling from belts, armor ranging from cheap cloth to full steel plate. Candlelight caught blade edges and illuminated scratch marks on breastplates. For a kid-sized person sitting at table level, the effect was genuinely intimidating. Fragments of conversation drifted over. Did you hear? Someone got attacked by a cockatrice in the eastern mountains. I was right there. Heard the noise and ran without looking back. Lucky to be alive. PSH, cockatrices aren't that scary. Just don't look at their eyes. I can't wait to show off my sword work. I opened my mouth to ask Clutter about cockatrices, realized this was absolutely not the place to discuss the locals like zoo exhibits, and quietly finished my food instead. Learning to read the room. Fantasy World Social Skills, Level 1. Upstairs in our room, Clutter flopped on his bed and yawned. Lots of new experiences today, huh? Anything on your mind? Not really. Just. Adventurers look different from what I imagined. Pfft. What you imagined is what bards imagined. Only the glamorous stories and impossible legends make it into songs. Adventurer sounds romantic, but really they're just mercenaries who'll take any job for money. All types of people. Some decent, most not. Watch yourself around strangers. Not everyone is as kind as the village folks. Bringing you here was partly to teach you that. He was right. And actually, this trip had given me something far more valuable than a reality check about adventurers. I'd finally figured out the white glow. 3 months of data, and today's city visit clinched it. The glow was an empathy sensor, a way to detect goodwill and hostility. When someone felt genuine kindness toward me, they shimmered with soft white light. That's what I saw when I first woke up in this world. Not hallucinations, not heaven, just the city defense soldiers radiating concern for a rescued child. Lina, Ostega, the chief, Vinette, Cook, Erwin, the village farmers, all glowing white because they genuinely cared. Hostility appeared as dark reddish-black spikes, like the charging bear's murderous aura that day with Asha. Pure killing intent, visible and visceral. Madison had flickered with a tiny thread of black when she first saw me. Not malice exactly, just irritation. Low grade, you're annoying me, energy. Below the threshold of real hostility. And here in Rockstead? The guards, passers-by, drinking adventurers, nothing. No glow at all. Complete indifference toward a random kid. Neutral. Blank. Only when I stared at someone too long did a faint dark flicker appear, mild annoyance at being watched. They'd glare, see I was just a dumb-looking child, shrug, and go back to their business. White equals goodwill. Dark red-black equals hostility. Nothing equals indifference. The intensity scaled with the emotion's strength. Sitting on my bed, chin on fist, I cycled through expressions, thinking, smiling, bitter smiling, as the puzzle pieces clicked together. Clutter was scribbling in his ledger and didn't bother asking about my weird face journey. Kid's daydream. Normal behavior. Nothing to see here. When he got absorbed in his accounting, I quietly slipped under the covers, pulled out Madison's textbook from my bag, and activated Jello Sense to silently memorize pages in the dark. One more thing I'd confirmed through repeated testing around Madison. Neither the pudding scanner nor the sphere sense was detectable by other people. Whatever this power was, it existed outside the magic system entirely. A completely invisible, undetectable cheat ability. A Chinese graduate student's soul, a divine beast's parting gift, and an alien world's magical energy, combined into the world's most underwhelming yet weirdly useful superpower package. 1 meter Jello brain. Emotion reading vision. 0 combat ability. The universe gave me spy tools when what I really needed was a fireball. But hey, I was alive, I had a plan, and tomorrow I was going book shopping. Baby steps. Wake up. Get up. Someone was slapping my face. Opened my eyes to find Clutter grinning at me like a morning person who deserved punishment. Glanced at the window, pitch black outside. Not a single ray of sunrise. What the heck? I don't have hunting duty today. Why are we up this early? Young people should have energy. Sleeping late is unacceptable. Besides, I've got client meetings this morning. Afternoon is your sightseeing time. At least the inn had hot water for face washing. 1 copper cup for the service. Clutter mentioned most adventurers didn't even bother, just waited until they stumbled across a river and splashed around in it. Animals. At least back in my cottage, I heated water over the fireplace like a civilized human being. Cold water, but water. After a quick breakfast, Clutter walked me to a shop near the inn, pointed out the crossroads, showed me how to get back, and then dropped the bomb. Here's the room key. Find your own way back later. What? You're leaving me alone? Client meetings. I can't negotiate for prices with a 6-year-old hanging off my arm. Besides, this is a bookstore. You'll love it. He shoved me through the door. Mr. Glass, are you in? Oh, it's you. What brings you to my humble shop? The bookstore was dimly lit. A few carefully protected candle lamps, tiny windows, shadows everywhere. Once my eyes adjusted, I could make out the layout. A low table with stacks of parchment paper, a carved wooden box full of quill pens, ceramic ink bottles, and shelves packed with simply bound books. In the back, on special individual stands, sat beautifully crafted scrolls made of genuine animal skin parchment. The owner was a white-haired old man with glasses, sitting behind a counter with a small incense burner trailing wisps of herbal smoke. Scholarly vibes. Trustworthy aura. Clutter gave him the cover story. Friend's kid. Wants to learn magic. Show him some books. Let him walk back alone when he's done. And vanished to go make money. Mr. Glass studied me, trying to figure out what Clutter saw in this plainly dressed village kid. Meanwhile, I was doing my best, wide-eyed child gazing at wonders, impression while secretly extending my Jello divine sense toward those gorgeous scrolls in the back. And jackpot, they contained actual spells. Real magical formulas recorded on enchanted parchment. My awestruck expression became 100% genuine, but most of the content was blocked by some kind of sealing magic. Only surface-level information came through. Made perfect sense. Otherwise, anyone could just browse the scrolls, have a few friends each memorize different sections, and walk out with free spells. Anti-piracy measures, medieval edition. Mr. Glass, are those spell scrolls on that shelf? They look fancier than the other books. I pointed with maximum innocent enthusiasm. Good eye, little one. Yes, those are spell scrolls. Spells are precious, so they're recorded on durable parchment to last longer. Are they really, really expensive? My hand was already squeezing the coin pouch in my pocket. 7 silver munis. My entire net worth. It's not just about expense. Even the cheapest single-ring spell scroll costs half a gold solar. Half a gold solar. That's 32 silver munis. I had 7. At my current earning rate of 3 copper cups per day, buying 1 beginner spell would take. I didn't even want to do the math. My dreams physically hurt. What about magic theory exam books? Are those expensive? Those are different. The theory exam was created by the government to help ordinary children study magic. The content itself is public. The price only depends on the printing materials. Full set of 6 books, 60 copper cups for the cheap edition, 2 silver munis and 52 copper cups for nice cow leather binding. And if you're a rich noble who wants everything on premium parchment, well, the cheap ones please. I cut him off before the numbers got any more painful. My hand was trembling around the coin pouch. While Mr. Glass fetched the books, I checked the price list on the front table. Paper options in this world. Cheap papyrus-style sheets made from sedge plants. Rough, yellowish, 50 sheets for 10 copper cups. Nicer paper closer to modern quality. 50 sheets for 25 cups. And actual parchment. Sheepskin originally, though nowadays, parchment also covered hides from stronger beasts that mages preferred for important documents. Even the most basic parchment, 50 copper cups per sheet. Spell scrolls used parchment. 1 sheet cost 50 cups, but a single beginner spell scroll sold for half a gold solar, over 2,000 copper cups. The magic markup was 30 times the material cost. Knowledge really was the most expensive commodity in any world. Mr. Glass, could I also get 1 sheet of parchment, 2 quill pens, and 2 bottles of ink? The pens and ink were dirt cheap. Simple craftsmanship, barely a few cups each. Having just stared at parchment prices, these felt like free samples. 2 silver munis and 2 copper cups total. Just give me 2 silver munis. Call it even. Mr. Glass smiled at my barely concealed financial agony. I handed over the coins with the solemnity of a funeral. Goodbye, money. You served me well for approximately 3 months. Rest in peace. Back in the hotel room, door locked, I spread the 6 theory books across the bed and started reading. Magical Network Evolution. Fundamental Principles of Spell Model Construction. Deep Analysis of Cantrips. Basic Logic of Incantation Languages. My excitement lasted about 4 pages before transforming into bewilderment. This was not children's educational material. This was graduate-level theoretical physics disguised as magic textbooks. What 10-year-old could understand this? Even with a teacher, students would fall asleep. But the more I read, the more I appreciated the design. These books weren't dumbed-down summaries. They were genuine, step-by-step explanations of how magic actually worked, written for people who couldn't feel magic naturally. Like describing colors to someone who'd never seen light. Incredibly detailed, incredibly complex, incredibly ambitious. The core concept blew my mind. The entire world was permeated by a substance called manhwa, magical particles that spread through mountains, forests, rivers, and caves like invisible vines. Scholars called this interconnected system the magic web. The magic web wasn't a literal structure. It was a metaphor for how manhwa flowed through everything. It was so vast that even gods couldn't easily disrupt its operation. Different elemental manhwa types moved in patterns that created seasons. The sun and moon were the densest concentrations of manhwa in the system, their different elemental compositions giving them distinct properties, light and tranquility. And spellcasting? Mages basically copied the magic web's operating principles on a miniature scale. They built tiny spell frameworks, mini magic webs, and channeled manhwa through them to produce different effects. Words, language, and gestures all carried unique power. Mages chanted specific syllables to manipulate manhwa while constructing unfamiliar spell frameworks. With enough practice, they could shorten the chanting, or eventually cast without speaking at all. Magic is even more incredible than I imagined. I was deep in the rabbit hole when Clutter knocked on the door hours later. He found me standing there, palm up, chanting at my own hand. Kwantong Zia, Zuva Sa, Tuan Puzen. Nothing happened. Obviously. You bought the theory books. Already trying spells, huh? Clutter held out his hand. Kwantong Zia, Ziyu, Vezati, Wan Puzen. A clean water droplet materialized on his fingertip, floating there like a tiny crystal ball. This is the water droplet condensation cantrip. But your pronunciation was completely wrong. Your rhythm was off, and you can't even feel manhwa yet. Please stop randomly chanting spell incantations before you hurt yourself. I flopped face down on the bed in maximum despair. Couldn't even cast the babyest of baby spells. My arms dangled off the sides while I pathetically flipped pages with jello sense. Come on, don't sulk. I'm free this afternoon. Let me show you what a real city looks like. He dragged me off the bed, smoothed out my wrinkled clothes, and after a quick lunch downstairs, we hit the streets. Rockstead was everything Novus Village wasn't. Bustling, loud, full of people and buildings and purpose. Clutter played tour guide, starting with a large official-looking building. Merchant Guild branch office. See the scale symbol on the door? Same as my golden badge. Pay your annual dues, get an ID card, and you can travel between cities with reduced fees and other perks. Is the Merchant Guild a private organization? Years of anime and fantasy novels had me assuming guilds were grassroots operations started by regular people. No way. The economy is a nation's lifeblood. The royal court controls it directly. Same with the Adventurer Guild next door. It's a government department created to manage the growing adventurer population. Adventurers are just too chaotic to regulate tightly, so the guild feels independent, but it's not. One more romantic fantasy fiction notion, destroyed by reality. Thanks, Clutter. We walked until we reached the most impressive building I'd seen in either lifetime. Gothic architecture at its finest. Pointed spires reaching for the sky like stone swords. Slender frameworks, soaring arched doorways, massive stained glass windows filling the spaces between structural ribs. Everything vertical, lines pulling the eye upward, creating this feeling of leaving the earth behind and ascending towards something divine. Side sculptures of incredible detail. An enormous, Intricate rose window that looked like it belonged in a museum. Wall reliefs carved with scenes that told some grand story, panel by panel. I stood there with my mouth slightly open. For once, I wasn't acting. The church, Clutter announced. One of the two great magical organizations, alongside the mage community. Our country doesn't reject other faiths, but the primary deity is Brethia, the goddess of light. And here's the interesting part. Even ordinary people without magical talent, if they devote themselves completely to a god with unwavering faith, can potentially receive that god's response and be granted divine power. My brain filed that away in the extremely important information folder right next to Beer Hops Opportunity and Magic Academy Entrance Requirements. 3. Paths to magical power, natural talent, academic study, or religious devotion. A Chinese atheist graduate student's soul, reborn in a world where faith could literally give you superpowers. The universe was testing me in ways my thesis committee never imagined. Want to go inside? Clutter asked, watching me stare at the church like it might eat me. The priests take goddess stuff seriously, but they're not snobs about visitors. We walked in and immediately encountered a fountain pool with an angel statue pouring water from its hands. Clutter washed his hands and face in it, then waved me over. We're visiting a goddess. Doesn't matter what you're wearing, but basic hygiene shows respect. Fair enough. I copied him, and we passed through a doorway 3 times my height into the main hall. My jaw dropped and stayed there. The walls rose like fish bones, climbing and connecting at the top to form a massive dome that made every person inside feel like an ant in a cathedral. Which, technically, we were ants in a cathedral. The walls were coated in some kind of gilded material that reflected light from the stained glass ceiling windows, bathing everything in liquid gold. Every surface told a story. Painted glass panels showing holy figures in various poses, surrounded by sun symbols made of circles and curved lines. It was the single most beautiful interior space I'd seen in any lifetime. Through the golden hall, past another door, into the actual prayer chamber. Rows of pews, mostly empty since today wasn't a special occasion. On the right side, a massive pipe organ with ornate decorations on every tier. Nobody was playing it, but the keys were pressing themselves, filling the enormous space with haunting, echoing music. Self-playing divine organ. Casual. Front and center, a towering statue of the goddess spreading holy light. Above her head, a tiny hole in the ceiling, engineered with insane precision so that a single beam of sunlight shot straight down through the incense smoke, wrapping the statue in a glowing halo effect. Whoever designed this building was a genius of dramatic lighting. Behind the goddess statue, 3 walls bore carvings of completely different-looking deities. I tugged Clutter's sleeve and whispered, "Those figures behind the goddess look nothing like her. And I think some of them have gender issues. Those aren't the light goddess. They're the creator gods. Yasula, mother of stars, Krivia, god of dimensions, and Opus, god of origins and all things. Creator gods have no gender, no fixed appearance. Whatever you imagine them looking like is what they look like. They existed before everything else. All other gods were born after they made the world. Legend says they're completely whimsical, wanting nothing, caring about nothing. They don't participate in worldly events and couldn't care less about worship. The other gods told their followers to place the creator's images behind and bigger than their own statues, out of respect. But since the descriptions are so vague and abstract, whether these creator gods actually exist or not is anyone's guess. Either they're nowhere, or they're everywhere. That's all I know. Picked it up from travelers. Come on, let's go pray. I followed Clutter to the goddess statue, knelt on a cushion, closed my eyes, pressed my palms together, and that drew a complete blank. What was I supposed to do? Think happy thoughts? Recite something? My divine sense sphere picked up nothing from Clutter. He was just kneeling silently. No chanting, no special moves. Just vibing with the goddess, apparently. Dear goddess, please forgive me for having absolutely zero idea what I'm doing right now. About a minute later, Clutter stood up, so I stood up too, wearing my best, totally just had a spiritual experience face. A nun approached with a tray holding 2 small glass bottles filled with clear liquid that faintly glowed. May the holy light be with you, such a classic line. Kept that one strictly internal. Clutter thanked her, handed me one bottle, and we left. What is this? Holy water. Never heard of it. Contains a tiny amount of divine power, basically nothing in the free samples, but it's effective against undead creatures and dark forces. Like goddess, holy water works especially well for that. By the way, what did you pray for? Well, full panic mode. Couldn't exactly admit I'd spent the entire prayer session mentally apologizing for not knowing the protocol. I asked the goddess to help me learn magic successfully. What about you? I asked her to bless my business with a bright future. His face was disgustingly smug. A bright future? That counts as light-related? He gave me a thumbs up with the most punchable grin imaginable. Bright is light. Everything bright falls under the light goddess's jurisdiction. She'll definitely answer me. The logic was so bad it looped back around to being almost impressive. We bickered all the way to our next stop, the Mage Association branch office. After that incredible Gothic cathedral, my expectations were high. Floating towers? Glowing runes? Mystical spires piercing the clouds? What I got, a slightly larger than average 3-story building. Normal materials. Normal architecture. 2 blue banners flanking the entrance. That's it. Could have been a post office. Is this it? Clutter caught my disappointment. What's wrong? It's very big and very charming. It definitely doesn't lose to the church in terms of grandeur. It just lacks something. Something that makes me feel, wow, this is magical. Like a certain vibe, an atmosphere, a quality that screams wizards work here. My hands flailed in the air, trying to physically sculpt the concept I couldn't verbalize. I get it. If you want the real magic experience, you need to visit Mount Omnipotence, the Magic Association headquarters. Buildings from the summit all the way into the clouds. Floating islands everywhere. Mage towers suspended in midair. An entire city built in the sky. It has no official name, but everyone who's been there says the same thing. That is magic. Even Clutter's eyes went dreamy for a second. Then he ruffled my hair, which he'd turned into a hobby, and snapped back to reality. I'll probably never get to see it myself. And you're miles away. Can't even get into magic school yet, you little brat. Come on, let's check out the night market. Maybe we can find some snacks. I pointed at the association door. We're not going in. It's just a local bureaucratic office. Nothing special inside. You can explore it when you come back for your aptitude test in 4 years. Walking away, I noticed something and asked, Uncle Clutter, why is it called the Mage Association and not the Mage Guild? The merchants and adventurers both use guild. Good catch. Those 2 guilds are completely controlled by the capital. But the church and the Mage Association are independent. They cooperate with the government, but don't belong to it. Mages have homelands, but magic has no borders. The founder probably wanted people to study magic freely, without political strings attached. Who founded it? When? Thousands of years ago, during the ancient magic era. The founder was Melvira, who's now literally the goddess of magic. The association started as a tiny group of magic nerds and grew over millennia into what it is today. A club for magic enthusiasts that got so successful its founder became an actual deity. The ultimate startup success story. The night market was lively, street vendors lining both sides of a wide road, lanterns and voices, and the smell of food. My eyes immediately locked onto something at a stall. How much for this? A pretty hair clip. Nothing fancy, no jewels, ordinary materials, but it had a certain elegance to it. 32 copper cups, said the middle-aged woman running the stall. Could you go a little lower? There aren't any precious stones on it. 30. Final price. Deal. Who's that for? Clutter asked once we'd walked away. There aren't any little girls in the village. It's for Vinette. It's my first trip out. I want to bring everyone small gifts. Well, aren't you thoughtful for a tiny person? We kept browsing. A good luck charm pendant for Asha. And for Erwin. A towel. A pink towel. Clutter stopped walking. Why is the towel pink? Because it's pretty. It is pretty. For a girl. Erwin is a muscle-bound, beer-guzzling, hammer-swinging blacksmith. You think he wants a pink towel? That's exactly why it's perfect. All his towels look the same. Dark, boring, interchangeable. If I give him another plain one, he won't even know it's a gift. This one, he'll know it's from me. Instant recognition. Maximum sentimental value. That's. Okay, fine, whatever. But stop calling me old uncle. Calling me the same thing as Erwin makes me sound ancient. I'm much younger. You're all older than me. So what's the difference? Oh, is there a blacksmith shop around here? A regular one. Doesn't need to be skilled. Clutter thought for a long time. I deal with master weaponsmiths. Who pays attention to mediocre blacksmiths? Let's just wander. There's probably one nearby. 1 hour later. Hotel room. Let me get this straight. Clutter was rubbing his face with both hands. You went to a blacksmith to have him make 4 thin metal sticks. Square on top, round on the bottom. Just sticks. He held up the objects, bewildered. Look, I know they kind of resemble magic wands. But wands need to be made from mana-conductive materials like gold or silver. You can't just shape some rust-proof steel into sticks and call it a casting tool. These aren't wands. They're a gift for cook. They're called chopsticks. I washed the metal sticks in hot water, picked up a pair, and clicked them together in the air. Chopsticks? Never heard of them. What do they do? Watch. I dipped the chopsticks into vegetable soup, plucked out a leaf, ate it. Scooped pea paste onto bread. All one-handed. Smooth. Elegant. See? 1 hand, 2 sticks, no knife, no fork needed. Things a fork can't pick up? Chopsticks handle them. No sharp edges, no pointy tips. Convenient, fast, and safe. Clutter picked up the other pair, cook's gift set, and fumbled with them like a toddler holding crayons for the first time. Isekai'd. If you can't afford cutlery, you can just tell me. I can buy you a knife and fork. I'm starting to suspect you broke 2 twigs off a tree because you were too broke for real utensils and then convinced yourself you'd invented something. Excuse me? I was genuinely offended. Yes, buying gifts used up almost all my money. But chopsticks are perfect for cook. When he's cooking, he can taste test dishes without putting down everything else. A fork can't even pick up small stuff. Watch this. I plucked a single round pea from the soup and held it up triumphantly. I can hold this all day without dropping it. Then I picked up a book with my free hand. And I can read while eating. Try that with a knife and fork. Okay. I give up. Explain it to cook yourself when we get back. 5,000 years of Chinese culinary civilization, and my greatest cultural export to the fantasy world was going to be a pair of steel chopsticks given to a village chef who'd never seen anything eaten without a fork. Some legacies start small. While watching Clutter fumble with chopsticks like a man trying to eat soup with knitting needles, a horrible realization hit me. My face went red. My hand drifted to my coin pouch, which contained approximately 4 or 5 copper cups, also known as basically nothing. I'd bought gifts for everyone. Vanette's hair clip, Asha's charm, Erwin's magnificent pink towel, Cook's revolutionary chopsticks. Everyone except the guy who'd brought me here, paid for my lodging, and spent the entire day being my personal tour guide. Clutter, professional reader of human emotions, expert negotiator, a man who made his living noticing what people were thinking, caught on instantly. One look at my red face and my hand on the empty pouch, and he knew. He set down the chopsticks, flopped back on his bed, and sighed with the dramatic flair of a soap opera character. Little Isekai'd, your dear big brother brings you all the way to the city, shows you the sights, introduces you to bookshops and churches and night markets. And this is what he gets? Nothing. Well, I suppose I won't hold it against you now. But someday, when you have money, you owe me some really good booze. Good booze? My brain sparked like a flint hitting steel. Other fancy drinks? Couldn't afford them, couldn't make them. Impossible on every level. But Weizen beer plus hops? That was a recipe I literally carried in my head from another world. The missing ingredient was growing as a weed that nobody valued. The math was screaming at me. Uncle Clutter, what if I told you there's a way to drink Weizen every single day and make money doing it? He practically levitated off the bed. Mention alcohol and profit in the same sentence, and this man's fatigue evaporated like morning dew. What could a pint-sized brat possibly know about making money? Spill it. Do you know what snake hemp grass is? Snake hemp? Of course. The rope I use to tie cargo is made from it. Do you know what its flowers can do? The flowers? They make yellow dye, right? What's that got to do with Weizen? That's just the obvious use. According to Madison's herbology textbook, snake hemp flowers also have digestive and sedative properties. This was my cover story. The herbology book did mention these properties. Real, verifiable facts. My discovery of the preservation effect was supposedly an accident during experiments. Totally plausible for a precocious apprentice pharmacist. Definitely not knowledge imported from a previous life on Earth where beer brewing had a 5,000-year head record. Clutter's merchant brain engaged. Now that you mention it, Madison did give me a batch of sleep aid potions to sell once. They were popular with upper-class clients. Maybe snake hemp was an ingredient. But sedation and alcohol aren't related, unless you're saying people drink it to fall asleep. Not like that. The flowers work as an additive. I was experimenting with snake hemp for Madison's coursework, boiled it for a really long time to extract maximum potency. Was going to test the sedative effect on a small animal, but I forgot about it and left it sitting in my house. By the time I remembered, right before our trip, the solution hadn't gone bad at all, which means it has preservative properties. I let that sink in. If you add it to Isekai'd during brewing, the shelf life extends dramatically. And you, Mr. Clutter, my dear friend and business partner, understand better than anyone what shelf-stable Isekai'd would be worth on the market. This was all true. Since becoming Madison's apprentice, I'd been secretly experimenting with hop ratios. Too much made it unbearably bitter, too little, and the preservation was negligible. The experiments had some amusing side effects. The sedative properties of the hops meant I'd slept like a baby for several days after taste testing batches. Silver lining. A sealed bottle of hop and malt solution was sitting under my bed back home. If it hadn't spoiled, proof of concept was basically confirmed. Of course, Madison could never know. If she found out I'd modified boiling times from her approved recipes and drunk the results, she wouldn't just fail me. She'd probably exile me from her cottage with actual physical violence. Interesting theory, Clutter said carefully. But even if preservation works, you're forgetting something. Snake hemp extracts are bitter. Who's going to pay for bitter Isekai'd? Time to deploy the nuclear argument. I'm sorry, what? Did I just hear a grown man admit he prefers sweet drinks? I grabbed my own ears in exaggerated shock. The Isekai'd you love so much? That's basically sugar water for children. This entire inn is famous for honey wine, which is literally alcoholic candy juice. And downstairs, right now, there are big tough adventurers in full armor yelling cheers while chugging what is essentially adult lemonade. Clutter's face darkened. He knew I was right. The man's favorite drinks were all sweet. His defense mechanism activated immediately. I drink honey wine for business purposes. Staying sober during negotiations is strategic. The adventurers are the childish ones. Sure, buddy. Whatever helps you sleep at night. In a bed in a honey wine hotel. Besides the bitterness, there's also the aroma, I continued. Snake hemp flowers produce a rich, distinctive fragrance during extended boiling. That's actually why they work as dye-based material. That same fragrance carries into the beer. Bitter and aromatic. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. I told him about the historical accident that supposedly led to hops being discovered for brewing. A dye worker boiling snake hemp noticed the incredible smell, tasted the dye solution, out of curiosity, found the bitterness strangely pleasant, and happened to have a brewer friend. Without that chain of coincidences, nobody would have ever thought to add a bitter plant to alcohol on purpose. The raw materials are practically free, I pressed. Snake hemp grows wild. Nobody even cultivates it. Dye shops just forage for it. Malt from barley is cheap too. If this works, the profit margins are enormous. Clutter was wavering. I could see the merchant gears turning behind his eyes. This kid wasn't normal. The logic was sound. The costs were genuinely low. Farmers already brewed Isekai'd at home, proving the base process was accessible. Fine. Your argument holds up. The whole thing hinges on whether snake hemp actually prevents spoilage. How confident are you? 99%. Unless something went catastrophically wrong, my experiment worked. Come home with me and see for yourself. Deal. Although hearing a 6-year-old say experiment this many times is deeply unsettling. Are you really 6? I once heard about a genius little girl who invented an anti-aging pill. If something like that existed, every power-hungry old geezer on the continent would have already murdered someone to get it. There'd be news. Guess that just proves you're not as well-informed as you think, Uncle. You are so much less cute than when we first met. Watch it, or I'll tell Vanette you've been secretly researching alcohol production. Then I'll tell Vanette you brought me to a bar and let me drink honey wine. Then the candlelight. Through our shadows on the window paper, one tall, one tiny, gesturing wildly back and forth in what was basically a mutual blackmail negotiation between a grown man and a 6-year-old. Neither of us was going to back down. 5 days later, Clutter drove the cart back to Novus Village earlier than planned. One reason only, the hop experiment. On the road, he'd been turning the science over in his head. Why hadn't pharmacists discovered hop's preservative properties? Because potion making involved magic at multiple stages. Magical energy itself was what kept potions shelf-stable. Nobody would attribute a potion's longevity to one random herb when the entire process was infused with supernatural power. The preservation effect of snake hemp was invisible, hidden behind magic's shadow. Could magic preserve beer too? Theoretically, yes, but potion production was already impossible to scale up. No brewery could afford to hire pharmacists just to cast spells on beer barrels. The magical approach was a dead end commercially, which meant an unknown magical preservation method, like hops, was potentially revolutionary. And the person most likely to stumble onto it was exactly someone like me. A pharmacist's apprentice who couldn't use magic, forced to work with raw materials and observe their natural properties. Clutter had essentially reverse-engineered why my accident was plausible. I almost felt bad for deceiving him. Almost. The cart barely stopped before I sprinted inside, dove under my bed, and emerged clutching a big glass bottle with a tightly sealed cork. My precious experiment. Months of secret work. This is it. I added extra malt broth to test whether it could prevent spoilage in a sugar-rich solution. Clutter popped the cork and sniffed. No rot. No sour smell. Just the rich, distinctive aroma of hops and the warm scent of malt. Exactly what it should smell like. He paused, sniffed again, considered, then sighed and recorked it. The time frame is still short. And this is an actual beer, it's just mixed liquids. The brewing process matters, and yours was crude at best. Even if you turn this into drinkable alcohol, it'd probably taste terrible. This proves nothing definitive. My heart sank, but only for a second. But, he held up a finger, ways and recipes aren't secret. I can buy the necessary brewing supplies on my next trip. Then we go to Cook, use his kitchen, and run the full production process properly. Your hypothesis, real equipment, professional cooking skills. That will be a real test. You won't regret this decision. I flashed my tiny fangs in a grin and gave him a thumbs up. Haha, if this actually works, you won't have to worry about tuition anymore. Wait, tuition? What tuition? Magic school tuition, genius. Clutter ruffled my hair for the millionth time. You think magic academies are charities? You think passing the entrance exam means free education? Glass told you. The cheapest spell scroll costs 30 silver munis. Even though the government reduced fees to find talented commoners, one semester still costs a gold solar. 7 years, 14 semesters. That's 14 gold solars total. How much do you earn per day? 3 copper cups. 3 cups that Erwin is generously paying you for Bellows' work that's honestly worth 0. He's also teaching you blacksmithing for free. Do the math. 3 cups daily for 4 years until you're 10, without spending a single coin. Gets you about 4,300 cups. Convert that, and it's barely over 1 gold solar. Enough for 1 semester. And a certain someone just blew 3 months of savings on gifts, including a pink towel. Do that a few more times, and tell me how you're paying tuition. He stood over me with his hands on his hips, lecturing like an accountant who'd found fraudulent expenses. My head sank lower and lower with each devastating number. Then his voice softened. Look, buying gifts isn't bad. Using your tiny savings to thank the people who helped you. That actually says a lot about who you are. Maybe they started looking after you out of pity. But 3 months later, they still treat you like family. Teach you skills, feed you, protect you. That's because of your character. Your gratitude. Your work ethic. He crouched down and put his hand on my head, gently this time. We've all been talking about you, you know. Wondering what you'd be like in 4 years. Whether you'd save enough for your dream. If you couldn't. Everyone had already agreed to pool money together and help. My vision went blurry. And then you go and get accepted by Madison in 2 months. When nobody thought that was possible, he picked up the hop bottle, swirled it, and pressed it back into my hands. And now you come up with something like this. Oh, is little Cozy Eye actually crying like a regular kid? I'm not crying. I sniffed hard. My eyes were just foggy because of the hop fumes. Obviously, something got in my eye. Sure it did. Shut up. But standing there in my tiny cottage, clutching a bottle of experimental hop solution, knowing that an entire village of people I'd known for 3 months had already been planning to fund my education. Yeah, Something definitely got in my eye. Both of them, actually. Really persistent something. Back so soon. Vinette looked surprised when we walked through the tavern door. Business wrapped up fast, Clutter explained smoothly. Took the little guy sightseeing, but my next stops are too far to drag a kid along. Dropping him off first. We've made a pact. The hop plan stays secret until Clutter buys all the supplies, and we're ready to execute. Not even Cook gets told early. Vinette, here. I got you this hair clip from the city. Ah, thank you, Cozy Eye. See, some people bring actual gifts instead of just compliments every visit. She shot a look at Clutter that could have frozen lava. Ah, well, I've got urgent deliveries, gotta run. Bye. Clutter fled the building like a man escaping a crime scene. Gift distribution commenced. Cook received the chopsticks and, to my genuine shock, mastered them in about 30 seconds. The man's hand-eye coordination was inhuman. Years of knife work had given him finger dexterity that made my chopstick tutorial completely unnecessary. He was picking up individual peas before I finished my demonstration speech. Chief Ostick got a quill pen and ink bottle. I'd remembered his nearly bald pen from my first visit. His wrinkled face softened into the warmest smile. Then came Irwin. The blacksmith stared at the pink towel. Stared at me. Stared at the pink towel. His broad, serious face cycled through approximately 17 emotions in 3 seconds. Landing on, deeply conflicted, he checked the doorway. Nobody watching. Snatched the towel and stuffed it in the back room faster than he'd ever moved a piece of hot metal. A gift is a gift. Even a pink one. Madison received a sheet of parchment, the only thing I could afford that a potion master might actually use. She glanced at it with her usual ice-cold expression, waved her wand in a lazy circle, and a drawer opened by itself. My parchment flew in. A much nicer, whiter, more exquisite sheet of parchment flew out and drifted gently into my hands. Use this for writing from now on. Now, recitation test. After passing her quiz satisfactorily, based on her rare micronod, I walked out clutching the most beautiful piece of parchment I'd ever touched. The edges were immaculate. The color was pristine. The texture was like holding a cloud. It was so gorgeous I couldn't bring myself to actually write on it. Asha's reaction was the most Asha thing possible. He took the good luck charm, said nothing, put it in his pocket, and continued skinning a deer like nothing happened. That night, after his workout and bath, he stood in his backyard using a water basin as a mirror, holding the little charm up to different spots on his body, frowning, trying to figure out where to wear it so it wouldn't be visible or get damaged in combat. Tough guy? Secret softy. Classic Asha. 10+ days of waiting later, Clutter's cart finally rolled back into the village trailing a dust cloud. He'd bought everything. Brewing equipment, barley malt, and as much quality snake hemp, hops, as he could find. Operation Beer was go. Can I help you too? Cook opened the back door to find one grinning merchant and one grinning 6-year-old standing outside like cartoon villains. SHHH. Clutter slapped his hand over Cook's mouth and jerked his chin at me. I started unloading supplies from the cart, dragged inside and sat on the back steps. Cook listened with increasing bewilderment as Clutter launched into his pitch about revolutionizing the Waizen industry. Cook sighed, ignored Clutter entirely. Turned to me. Cozy Eye, Clutter is always doing something stupid. Why are you mixed up in this? Uncle Cook, this was actually my idea. I couldn't afford a gift for Clutter, and he likes drinking, so I figured out a way to make Waizen that won't spoil. Is this actually going to work? How confident are you? 99.9%. Why the decimal? Because I already promised Clutter 99%, and I'm even more confident now. But I don't want to jinx it. Fine. He bought all the supplies already, and it's not my money on the line. Tell me how to add the snake hemp stuff. Here we go. We set up a big pot in the backyard. First step, cracking the malt. 3 of us sat there with hand-cranked mini grinders, adjusting the settings until the husks cracked open without being pulverized. 1 kilogram of malt per 3.5 liters of water. Into the gradually heating pot. Cook stirred with a giant iron ladle while I carefully managed the fire. And Clutter? He pulled up a little stool, sat down, produced a bag of nuts from somewhere, and started snacking while tossing the shells into the flames. Contributing nothing. Classic investor behavior. Cozy Eye, add more wood. Temperature needs to go higher. After considerable sweating and stirring, Cook and I sat on the ground washing hop flowers while Clutter, finally doing Actual work. Filtered a massive pot of malt soup through cloth. These hop flowers look as malnourished as I was 3 months ago, I complained, pinching the scraggly little blossoms. Madison's garden weeds look healthier than these. This is actually the good stuff, Cook said, draining the flowers. Clutter probably tried hard to source quality hops, but since the only known uses are dye and rope, nobody cultivates them properly. Wild harvested is all that exists. I sighed like a tiny old man, which apparently looked hilarious because Cook cracked a smile. If this works, the preservation secret won't stay hidden forever. Lots of people will start growing hops. We need to figure out how to cultivate better varieties early. Already thinking 3 steps ahead. My graduate research brain never sleeps. Everything prepped, Cook looked at the clear malt soup and asked, "Now what?" "Boil it. Add 2 grams of hop flowers per liter. Simmer for 1 hour minimum. Keep the water loss under 10%. Got it." Simple instructions. Cook didn't need hand-holding. The man was a kitchen professional. After the hop boiling, he went to prepare yeast culture while Clutter and I transferred the clarified wort into 2 tall glass jars. These jars were Clutter's biggest expense. In a world where ordinary glass was still difficult to manufacture, transparent containers large enough for fermentation monitoring cost a fortune. He protected them the entire journey using soft padding and wind magic. The jars alone cost more than all other brewing supplies combined. A merchant who invested in see-through fermentation vessels because a 6-year-old told him to brew beer. Either visionary or insane. Possibly both. The rest is standard Weizen procedure, Uncle Cook. All yours, no problem. By the time everything was sealed and carried down to the cool cellar, where Cook's existing wine collection lived, it was mid-afternoon. I sprinted to the forge for my bellows shift, leaving Clutter and Cook standing in the cellar staring at each other. On the way back to the kitchen, Cook asked flatly, "You're really willing to invest this much? What if it all goes to waste?" "That doesn't seem like you. This is little Cozy Eye's future tuition money." Rare moment of sincerity. Lasted approximately 3 seconds. Besides, Clutter's face shifted back to his usual scheming grin. "Even if the beer fails, I can sell the equipment, open a small tavern, and serve regular Weizen in limited quantities. I always make my money back. And if it works, shelf-stable Weizen can travel to distant cities. The market is enormous." He slung his arm around Cook. "And you'll get a cut, of course." Cook removed the arm from his shoulder without changing expression. "Have you considered that if this takes off, other breweries will reverse engineer the recipe? It's simple. They can't afford pharmacists to brew for them, but they can afford to pay someone to analyze what's in the beer. You're a small-town merchant. How do you compete with industry?" Minor detail. Clutter's smile didn't waver. Cozy Eye already told me his vision for beer varieties. Right now we're limited to basic barley malt and 1 type of hop. But eventually, roasted malt, crystal malt, different hop strains, aromatic, bitter, dual purpose. Once we're profitable, wheat beer too. We keep the secret as long as possible. By the time big breweries figure out the base ingredient and start sourcing hops, we'll already be rolling out multiple flavors for different customer preferences. And since hops are completely harmless, competitors can't attack us with safety concerns. They'll just think we have a special recipe for new flavor Weizen. Beer? Strange name. Is that what this new Weizen is called? Yeah. Cozy Eye says he heard the word from some Eastern traveler he met while wandering. The guy gave him bread and barley tea once. So he named the drink after barley. Beer, basically barley drink. A cover story I'd fabricated to explain where a 6-year-old orphan learned a word from literally another civilization. Thin. Sure. But nobody in this world was going to fact-check my fictional Eastern traveler. Simple name, Cook mused. No fancy backstory, no pretentious branding. A common drink for common people. Fits. The next few days became the most suspicious period in Novus village history. 3 people kept disappearing into the cellar at random intervals, peering into glass jars of bubbling golden liquid, whispering to each other, and emerging with poorly concealed excitement. Erwin noticed something was off. One evening at the tavern, he flagged down Vanette. "Hey, has Cook been acting weird lately?" Vanette thought about it. "Now that you mention it, yes. He's been sneaking around the backyard with Cozy Eye and Clutter. Every time I go check, they act totally normal. Probably just Clutter being greedy and using Cozy Eye as an excuse to get Cook to make him snacks. Reasonable assumption. Completely wrong, but reasonable. 2 months of fermentation later, the cellar. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Cook, pour me a glass. I need to taste it now. Clutter was vibrating with anticipation, cup extended. You've been down here practically every day for 2 months. Staring at beer doesn't make it ferment faster. What if Isekai'd's 0.1% failure margin kicks in? If I wasn't watching, you would be the biggest risk to this operation. Cook glared, but uncorked the seal. The smell hit all three of us instantly. Hop aroma. Rich, distinctive, floral, unlike anything that existed in this world's alcohol vocabulary. Our eyes collectively widened. This is all you cook. If Isekai'd and I had tried this alone, we'd have ruined it and started over twice by now. Clutter watched Cook ladle beer into his cup. Golden liquid. And then, foam. Real foam. A wobbly, creamy cap of bubbles forming on top of the glass, growing, swaying, holding its shape. Oh. Cook, are you seeing this? Just like Isekai'd predicted, the hops create foam. I always thought clear, foam-free wine looked more sophisticated, but this much foam pushes past novelty into something completely new. Glug, 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 glug. He was already drinking. Cook hesitated, then ladled a tiny portion into a small bowl for me with the energy of a school cafeteria lady who resented generous portions. Children should not drink much. Just taste it. 4. Research purposes. The man was enabling a 6-year-old's alcohol consumption and framing it as academia. I love this world. Clutter wiped foam from his lip with the back of his hand, and his eyes went to the ceiling. The slight bitterness cuts through the malty sweetness perfectly. The hop aroma adds an entirely new dimension. The original Weizen flavor becomes so much more refreshing. This bitter, rough, fragrant taste with just a hint of lingering aftertaste. This is exactly what adventurers want. Better than I even imagined. I watched him transform into a beer sommelier in real time. A man performing literary analysis on an alcoholic beverage. If my university had a department for this, Clutter would have graduated with honors. Standing in a cellar, holding a tiny bowl of humanity's first proper beer in this world, I allowed myself one quiet internal celebration. Tuition secured. To test the shelf life, we waited a full month before officially releasing the beer. And when it hit the market, people just thought it was a weird new drink. Nothing alarming. But that crisp flavor and the thick, creamy foam layer? Adventurers went crazy for it. The small quantity we released barely rippled the alcohol market, exactly as Clutter planned. A quiet entrance, a gentle wave, then silence while we prepared the tsunami. Fast forward, 2 years later. My second winter in this world. Here's your cut, Isekai'd. Clutter yawned, tossing me a heavy leather pouch as I walked into the tavern. 2 years had changed me. Not just mentally, physically. My hair was jet black now, with a few streaks of white at the front that I couldn't explain. My face looked more and more like the old me from Earth, almost completely overriding the orphan's original features. Somewhere in another dimension, a fluffy white cat was pointing at a TV screen, lecturing its cat cafe owner. It's called the Ship of Theseus. Kid, look it up. His body cells are gradually reshaping to match his soul's appearance. Give it 3 or 4 more years, and he'll look exactly like his old self. And those white hairs? Those are not white hairs. That is my divine power manifesting externally. Show some respect, comma. I opened the pouch. 5 gold solars sat on top, gleaming. Wait, weren't we supposed to keep beer sales quiet and reinvest most of the profits? Why is there suddenly this much? For the past year and a half, Clutter had been strategically limiting distribution, only supplying nearby small-town taverns, keeping the brand under the radar while I researched different beer varieties. Couldn't hold back anymore. The demand is insane. Besides, I've already set up a brewery and hop farms under a fake identity. Time to let beer conquer the entire Jackmund duchy. Hee. That merchant grin of his was so devious it deserved its own wanted poster. Ignoring the cackling capitalist, I went to buy dried meat from Cook. Madison had left days ago for some pharmacist conference in another city. Erwin was taking the day off to drink with Clutter. No forge duty, no potion prep, no obligations. Perfect afternoon for solo hunting. Over the past 2 years, and especially the last 6 months, my body had finally caught up with Ash's training. I could swing that iron spear without effort now, and my archery hit 100% accuracy within 50 meters. Asha had graduated me to solo hunts in the forest outskirts. Rabbits, foxes, small game. Practice and survive. The forest felt like home now. The shadows that once terrified me were just scenery. I moved through the trees using every technique Asha had drilled into me. Reading tracks, checking wind, staying quiet, comfortable, confident. Then my ears caught something. Hey, Moo Mutal, what are you doing? A voice. Panicked. Human. Coming from deep in what should have been an empty section of forest. Adventurers had been multiplying with the warm weather, pushing local hunters like me to more remote areas. But apparently, remote wasn't remote enough today. I ducked into a downwind bush immediately. Concealed my breathing, my scent, every trace of existence. Asha's rule number one for situations like this: unless you've already been spotted, don't run. Hide. Wait. Let them leave. My divine sense had grown considerably, over 10 meters of range now. Enough to see everything without moving. What I saw made my blood go cold. A man sat on the ground, pale-faced, trembling. One hand bracing himself up, the other clutching his stomach, where a knife protruded. Stabbed from behind, all the way through. Standing over him, a masked figure holding a piece of parchment. A thief. Or assassin. Same job description, different PR strategy. You know how it is, victim, the masked man said casually. And yes, the dying guy's name was literally Victim, which felt like the universe being unnecessarily on the nose. This is supposedly a great mage's hidden legacy. Maybe there's treasure inside, maybe there isn't. But if word gets out, even an empty cave draws attention. Better if only one person knows the secret. Lower leak risk. You understand, right? You liar. We had a deal. A deal? Don't make me laugh. I know you were planning to kill me the moment we found the location. I just noticed first and struck preemptively. Technically, I'm the victim here. A clever victim who defended himself against a treacherous partner. Nice story, right? He kicked the man flat, stepped on his chest, drove a second knife into his heart, watched the light leave those hate-filled eyes, then calmly wiped both blades on the dead man's clothes, looted his money, cast a minor earth-moving cantrip to dig a hole, and buried the body along with the bloodstains. Professional. Efficient. Terrifying. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Watched through divine sense as the killer walked away deeper into the forest, following his treasure map. Only when he was completely gone did I exhale. Then, as my heart rate returned to something resembling normal, my peripheral vision caught something I'd been too tense to notice before. A small plant, growing right next to me. Is that a soybean? My biology brain kicked in hard. Soybeans. The foundation of tofu, soy milk, soy sauce, staples of Chinese cuisine that historically originated in China and didn't reach the West for centuries. And here was a wild specimen growing in a fantasy world medieval forest. The fuzzy pods held small, underdeveloped beans, still summer, not yet mature, malnourished looking, but unmistakably soybeans. My mind was already racing through tofu production methods when I shifted my weight against the tree I was leaning on, and the tree wasn't there. My back hit empty air. The ground vanished. Gravity took over.